What's going on? Just a hair before 10 o'clock. Good morning. From the Circus Sports Studios, I am Robert Walsh. Trade deadline came and went, and we saw the Jets fully embrace the rebuild, trading Sauce Gardner to the Colts for 2 first-round picks and wide receiver A.D. Mitchell, and also sending Quinnen Williams to the Cowboys for a 2026 second and a 2027 first. Titans stood firm at the deadline with rumors swirling around T'Vondre Sweat. After the deadline had passed, Jordan Schultz reported, quote, they view him as a young, ascending cornerstone, a key part of their future plans, and have made it clear they're not looking to move him. In free agency news, the Carolina Panthers announced they would release former Vols quarterback Hendon Hooker after signing him to the practice squad in August after being released by the Detroit Lions. And in college basketball last night, Duke took down Texas 75-60 after a soft first half. Cameron Boozer bounced back to finish with a double-double, scoring 15 points and pulling down 13 boards. Titans general manager Mike Borganzi will speak to the media momentarily. We'll carry that right here on the Buck Rising Show. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Good morning. Welcome in. Happy hump day, post-NFL trade deadline day. And what a deadline day it was. Not so much involving the Tennessee Titans beyond the Monday night trade of Draymond Jones to the Baltimore Ravens. But my goodness, splash deals all over the place, left and right. And we've got much to discuss. Titans GM Mike Borganzi has several questions that will be asked, and he will step up to the podium momentarily at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park to talk about the Titans' activity or lack thereof leading right up to the trade deadline. Now, I understand Titans fans saw what the Jets were doing and maybe got a little bit of FOMO watching the Jets ship off Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner and collecting all the first-round draft picks for the next couple of years. But I tend to think there were some unrealistic expectations there from Titans fans heading into deadline day, but nonetheless, we'll have time to discuss it. Let's get out of the way for GM Mike Borganzi at his post-deadline day press conference.
I thought it was a good opportunity here with the bye week and the trade deadline yesterday, just to really talk about, the roster right now, take you into a little bit of the insight in terms of decisions we've made, and just about the team in general. And right now, the results aren't good enough right now, and we understand that. And we understand the frustration, with the fan base, and we know that we have to earn back the trust of this fan base. One of the things that was, really appealing to me when I took this job was the passion that this fan base has. Coming in here as an opposing team, you could feel that passion, that it meant something to the community, to families here. And I always said, if I'm going to go somewhere, I want to make it impactful. And it's great to be in a place where people care about the team. And I've been here, close to a year now. I have young kids, they're in school. I've got to meet a lot of people in the community. And I feel their passion and I feel their frustration right now. And, but we are doing everything possible right now to get this right and to fix it. And we will. I believe we will at the end of the day. And, with all the negativity that comes along with losing, it's hard to see any positive signs. But there are positive signs. I want to really thank the coaches right now and the players for their work ethic every day and energy that they come in with every day to get better here, despite the losing. I've been around places where, we're having a tough season like this, and it's hard to come to work. And I don't feel that here. And I think the coaches, let's be real, this is a tough situation for them right now. They moved their families here. They want to come here to win. And, we haven't done that yet. And But they come to work every day, and their willingness to work with younger players here to develop them, and I think they have developed them. I want to highlight the rookie class that we have. I think it's a special class. I really do, and not just because I was a GM who picked these players, but I do feel like it's a special class, and it's a class that we can build upon. They represent everything that we want in a Titan. From day one, they stepped in this building. Their work ethic, their passion, their drive to get better, and they are getting better right in front of our eyes. And they're all playing, and they're developing. And that's going to help us through the next 8 games here and into the future. Another thing is we have this player development program that we started here. And it's really the best I've seen. And it's been spearheaded by Dave Ziegler and Bryce Wasserman. And they work with all different departments in the building to help these players develop on the field, off the field. So those are the real positive things that I see here, despite the losing, which causes a lot of negativity. I understand that. I just want to take you into some of the roster decisions, a little bit of insight on some of the trades that we made. We are in constant evaluation mode here, with players, with staff. And that comes, with players, it might be talent, it might be scheme fit, it might be culture fit. The word culture gets thrown around there a lot. So what do you mean by that? Well, it's the habits that we want to have with our players to create a winning culture here. It's the team first mentality, it's the accountability piece, it's the attention to detail piece. It's their willingness to work and get better every day. So that's what we're looking for when we're evaluating these players. And I know the first trade we made with Jarvis Brownley was I'm aware of it. It was controversial around here because he's a young player that was ascending, and you're evaluating the fit, and without getting into a lot of details. I like Jarvis, and I think he's going to be a really good player in this league. We don't have the culture right now sometimes to help guys develop right now. And, we thought at the time, just some of the habits weren't conducive to building the culture right now. And I know it's hard to understand because he was a young player, and I wish Jarvis nothing but the best. The Roger McCreary trade, Roger. Teammates loved him. You could tell they loved him. Roger's a good player. It's part of the strategy when you're looking at the roster and evaluating the market in terms of, he's in an expiring contract and what's it going to look like next year. And that's the piece when you draft and develop players too, that you have guys coming in here. It had nothing to do with, because I didn't draft Roger. It has nothing to do with that. We found there was some interest with Roger, and it happened to be the Rams, who had owned our 5th-round pick from a prior trade, and so we thought that was good value for us. We were at in the draft, we were missing that 5th-round pick, so we had a 4th-round pick, which was at the beginning of the 4th, and then we had a 6th-round pick, which was the beginning of the 6th. So that's about an 80-spot move if the draft had happened that day. So we thought that was good value, really just getting that pick back, and that's the reason why we did it. Draymond Jones, love Draymond. He's really coming on here the last 4 or 5 games, and I think that's why a lot of teams have called on him. We weren't looking to move on from Draymond right now, but we also have to think about the future of this program and where we're at. And, we had a chance to acquire a pick that from Baltimore that, could be a high pick in the 5th and potentially could turn into a 4th-round pick. So let's hope the Ravens go to the playoffs and Draymond has 2 more sacks and we can get a 4th-round pick out of it. That's what the conditions were there. And just really just the youth movement, too, of the roster I want to hit on. We have 11 players on the active rookies right now, 2 on IR with Femi and Mullings, and hopefully get them back here at some point. So that's 13 guys on the active that are rookies. Right now, that's second in the league, I think, right now. I hope that's right. with New England for the most rookies on a roster. I know there's going to be questions about the head coaching search, which is, we're in the process of that, and I just don't think this is the time really to talk about that part of it. So with that, if there's any questions.
When you talk about the habits conducive with Jarvis, I know you probably don't want to get into the specifics of what those were, but can you talk us through what habits you want from players?
Well, I think I touched on just the accountability piece, attention to detail, the willingness to get better every day, and so I don't want to specifically, touch on that because Jarvis is a great kid, and I wish nothing but success for him.
You say that there are some times that you can't teach that culture with the program you have now.
Yeah, that's hard to explain sometimes with the culture in the locker room. When you have a standard in the locker room at some point, when you're winning a lot of games, when you bring a player in, they know exactly what they need to do, or they know they won't be there very long. There's a standard there, so we're trying to create a standard. And sometimes that's hard to articulate to people and the fans, but when you're in a locker room, you feel it, and when you're around a winning team, you feel it. I certainly felt it in Kansas City. Every person that we brought in there, they knew right away. If Pat and Kelsey were out there practicing every day hard, shit, I better be out there practicing every day hard. So we need to create that standard here, and we do have some pieces here. I want to highlight Jeff Simmons. Jeff has been tremendous. Jeff was a player that came in this league and they were winning, and he's gone through some losing seasons here right now. And I communicate with Jeff a lot, and Jeff is a big part of why we're going to turn this thing around here. He is. He's one of the better players in the league, and his leadership with these young guys has been tremendous.
Did you talk to Dallas about Jeff, considering what Dallas gave up for Williams?
I'm not going to get into who we talked. We talked to 31 other teams for the past 3 weeks. So I will not get into any particulars of any moves that we did not make. But I will say with Jeff, just because you asked about Jeff, and I'm not going to talk about any other players here, Jeff is invaluable to us right now, to where we want to go.
When you say building for the future, though, as you did with Draymond, does that not enter into the picture with Jeff as well as probably your most valuable asset, that could be traded?
Well, you have to weigh those options, and you say it's a business, but like when you weigh those options, you look at it and you say, what do we have here? And he's a pillar here in this organization for what you want, and he's one of the best players in the league at his position. And the way he works every day at practice, I don't know if I've seen a defensive lineman superstar like him, just empty the tank every day at practice. It's impressive. And when your best player does that, and younger guys look to him, that's what you want. That's what I'm talking about being a standard.
Mike, in talking about building culture fit, obviously you drafted Cam #1 overall, and you feel like he brings the intangibles you're looking for.
Yes.
That can be a franchise quarterback. But what do you see from him so far? Because it looks like he has struggled probably more than most #1 overall picks should entering the league.
He looks like a rookie quarterback playing on, a team that had the #1 pick last year, and he is he's developing, and he's developing with a lot of other rookies too as well, right? So we have 2 rookie wide receivers out there playing, Chim and Ellick. We have Gunner playing out there. So they are learning together, and they're only going to be better because of it. And I have full confidence that Cam, because of his work ethic, because of his drive, that he will fix things that he needs to fix, just like every quarterback in this league, though. And I have full confidence that he's going to get there.
You promoted McCoy to interim.
Yep.
Part of the rationale there was not to disrupt the defense with Denard, not to disrupt special teams with Bones.
Yep.
Those things have been disrupted by trade. Defense certainly has been disrupted by trade.
Yeah.
Those guys seem to have a little bit more fire than Mike, who's punting from inside opponents' territory. You're getting more conservative coaching from Mike than you got from Brian. What do you think of the job that he's given
I
you
think
so
Mike's
far?
doing a great job holding everything together here under the circumstances, Paul, really. And Denard is a hell of a coach. And I have conversations with Denard all the time. And, before we made these trades, it's not like we make these trades and don't have conversations. And is he going to agree on all the trades? No. But I think at the end of the day, he understands it. And he understands that, he has a job to do. But, you say you got a job to do, that's your responsibility to do the job. But, his willingness to still do the job is why he's a good coach.
Wouldn't you like to see things be a little less conservative, given that you guys have nothing to lose in terms of the approach from the head coach?
Yeah, I mean, you still have to make smart decisions out there. He's the head coach, and he's going to make decisions that he feels best for the team. And when there's opportunities to be aggressive, we'll be aggressive. But Mike's done a tremendous job here under the circumstances here too, of being the head coach here.
You look at Jeffrey Simmons, like you mentioned him as a top player, and you look at what Denard has been able to do, and then you trade away Draymond Jones. What does it say what Denard has been able to do in the last few games without Simmons, and what's left of your outside linebackers group?
Yeah, no, he's done a tremendous job. He's a great coach. We had 6 sacks last week, and we have Arden coming back here, hopefully here after the bye. So having Arden back, and eventually we'll get Jeff here back. We'll see how he looks here after the bye. But tremendous job the whole staff has, really. Tony Oden, his willingness to work with younger corners and guys that we claimed off the waiver wire, because of losing guys from trades and injuries with Snead. So it's been difficult for them, but like I said, they come in here every day, and their willingness to work and try to get these guys better has been impressive. Because like I said, I've been in other situations before where you're losing, the culture in the building's bad, but I don't feel that here. I don't.
Some other things you've seen, Mike, I guess from the draft class, and how unfortunate, I guess, that Femi had the injury he did that kind of halted his progress. Mm-hmm. What are maybe some of the other highlights from the draft class?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're all contributing. Obviously, Cam's a starting quarterback in the league here that has some really good moments, really high-level throws, and once he puts everything together with some consistency, which I think he will. But he's been impressive. His leadership's been impressive. Like I told you, the whole group's been impressive in terms of leadership. Kevin, coming off the ACL, basically under a year, and then we got him back out, had a little setback, but he's starting to play and come on, and you see flashes of it. His speed, his athleticism, and then the 3 guys we took in the 4th with Alec and Chim and Gunner have all contributed. And, DK, I think, leads the league in all-purpose yardage right now. The punt return he had the other week, you talk about a dependable player now. That's what he exemplifies. And Gunner, you've seen in flashes. He's going to be, a really good player for us in this offense. And then, Jackson is on the active right now in a reserve role and just hasn't had a chance. And Mullings was doing some good things on teams before, he had the ankle injury. But, really happy to see their progress so far.
You talk about earning the trust back with the fan base. Mm-hmm. One thing that I think the fans don't trust is with the dynamic between you and Chad and kind of the opaqueness in terms of, what your responsibility is and what Chad's responsibility is. And when it comes to trusting this team to get it fixed, mm-hmm. Chad has been here for a lot of the recent mistakes that were made in some capacity or another. So what are the job responsibilities, and why should the fans trust you and Chad to get it right?
Yeah. It's a good question, and it's a fair question. And with Chad, I can go back to when we were in Kansas City. There was a few of us that were on that staff there that ended up being 2-14. I think that 2012 year. It was myself, Ryan Poles, Brant Tillis. Ryan Poles is a GM now. It's Bears. I'm here. Brant Tillis is a VP of operations with the Carolina Panthers. So what I'm trying to say is that, like, even though there's, we were losing at the time, there's still really good people in the organization. I get the question. I do. And Chad is invaluable to me. Chad hired me, Amy hired me to really construct the roster. That's what they hired me for. And they empowered me to do that. And what Chad does is, he has knowledge in scouting. He's got knowledge in the salary cap, strategy. Chad is really smart. And Chad supports me with all the decisions that I make. And it's no different in every other organization. You can say the titles and who's above who. It's the same structure in every organization. You got the GM, you have your, VP of strategy cap, and then you get the head coach. And whatever title you want to give them, those are the three people that work together to make decisions. And there's no one person that, like, if he's got the 53, I'm going to go rogue and just make a pick. But they empowered me to make those decisions here, to draft players, to sign players, to construct the roster. So fair question. I get it, Jared. But just to give you a little insight on that.
How much input will you have in the selection of the new coach, working within that framework?
Yeah. Good question, Harry. We're in the process with it now, but, one of the things that me and Chad have talked about too is, the GM and the head coach work together every day. So I think it's imperative that we make this decision, who's the best leader of this organization coming forward. I know I don't want to touch on the head coaching topic, but I do want to mention this though. But, me and Chad have had conversations, and it's important that, it's a fit, not only fit for the organization. We want a leader here. I don't care if it's defense, offense, that they have a working relationship with the GM, myself. We'll come together. We'll make the best decision for that.
Where has Snead been since the injury, and would you expect him to play again this season?
Yeah, I just saw LJ yesterday. He's doing great. He's rehabbing. To answer your question, I don't know yet. He's still going through the process of the rehab right now, but Jarvis is in good spirits. So. Is
it a re-aggravation of last year's injury?
It's similar. I don't know exactly what it's similar. I don't want to go too much detail into it, the medical. But, yeah.
There was a lot of people maybe that thought you guys might be more active leading up to the trade deadline as well.
Yeah.
I wonder how much did injuries maybe to some players play a part in maybe not making more deals?
No. We look at everything and the value of it and who's valuable for the team right now. And there's some guys who are on expiring deals this year that still have 8 games here to evaluate, and they've done some good things. Yeah.
I guess maybe to follow, just to follow on that, I guess how much do you balance, as you said, building for the future, but you still want to have field a somewhat competitive team?
Sure, just balance there. We've got 8 games left. And, if we thought there was a value there, like I said, we talked to 31 other teams. I'm not going to get into every discussion we had. And, a lot of teams have called us, obviously. We weren't looking to acquire players at this point. It's more for draft capital for the future. But, yeah, that all comes into play.
You guys plan ahead, and so you know who is on an expiring contract. You know, with room to change your mind throughout the rest of the season, who you're probably planning on bringing back versus maybe not planning on bringing back, what you're going to offer who. When you reach a deadline like this and you have in mind who maybe you don't have in the plans right now, I think some fans look at that and say, well, why wouldn't you get anything now for a guy that's going to walk in 8 games for nothing? How does that factor into your decision making?
You have to weigh all those options, but a lot of the guys that are on expiring deals have done some good things here. We'll continue to evaluate them and to see if they're a fit here for the future. So we still have 8 games, a lot of games left here to evaluate them.
You talked about when you took the job about how if you took a young quarterback, you had to have a plan for the young quarterback, and
Yeah.
you compared that to Kansas City. And we know the plan in Kansas City where Mahomes sat the bench. And what was the plan for Cam, and how has that changed? Because I would assume that the plan wasn't to fire the coach 6 games
Sure.
into the draft.
That's fair. Yeah, what did Mike Tyson say? Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face, right? But yeah, I mean, there's a plan for him, and the plan right now is for him to still develop, and he has been developing. And I give credit to Nick and to Bo and to Mike on his development. That's part of it, the development plan. Now, will the offense change next year? Maybe. But in terms of the fundamentals and mechanics, understanding how to play the position, I think we got some really good coaches here to develop them.
With the amount of cap space you're going to have next year, and with the thinness of the roster, how much are you and your department forecasting at this stage what you might be doing with that money, given who's scheduled to become available?
Yeah, I mean, we're starting free agent meetings here in the early December, but we've been watching the free agents and building a board similar to a draft board with free agents in the league and trying to figure out their market value and trying to figure out our needs at the end of the season. So all that goes into it. Yeah, so, I mean, those discussions are going on right now, Paul.
How much can you do there realistically, given what reaches market at the prime positions where you need help?
Yeah, I mean, we can do, we have a lot of cap space. And like I said, we're going to have to, that's why it's hard when you have the philosophy. You have to stay disciplined to it too, Paul. And we use free agency really you have to fill the roster and you have to be competitive at the same time. But, in the future, we want to draft and develop these guys. But, there will be opportunities if we see a player that deems that is going to help us and we're thin at the position, we're going to attack it.
So is there a way to do both of those things? Be a draft and develop team, not want to try to buy a roster, do the thing in free agency we see teams do and fail to do, but still have so much money you have to spend?
Yeah, I mean, there's a balance to that, right? There is a balance because you have to see where the locker room's at, how many young players you have on your roster at the time. In my, I guess, experience, and listen, there's all different ways to build a team. I'm not knocking anyone else on how they build their team. It's just our philosophy. It's built through the draft, and there's going to be opportunities to supplement players when you feel you have to. But you certainly want it to be, having your roster consist of more younger players that are drafted to really build the culture you want.
In terms of the roster, you talked about Jeff being a cornerstone. You talked about the rookies being building blocks. How many building blocks do you feel like you have on this roster currently? Is it 20, 15?
Those are the things we're going through right now. So you try to identify, at least, I think Cam is one. I think some of these rookies can be. I think Jeff is one. And I'm not going to go through every player on the roster, but you would try to identify maybe like 3, 4, 5 guys. And you saw that in the past with Kansas City. It's like the same 4 guys that have been there for that whole run there, right? So, yeah, I do think there's some cornerstone players here that can be part of this. Some of them are younger now and they have to develop, and we need to continue to add to that.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right. That's Titans General Manager Mike Borganzi recapping trade deadline day. Plenty to unpack there. We'll do that. 615-737-1045 is the number. Lucas and Bert with you until 1 o'clock and for the rest of the week as Buck scurries off to Miami. We'll take your reactions and recap what Mike Borganzi had to say coming up next.
The Tennessee Men's Clinic is here to help you if you are experiencing performance issues, because that happens to a lot of guys. As you get up there in age, as your body starts to change, you may notice some differences, and those things don't have to be inevitable. The Tennessee Men's Clinic has been helping guys with performance issues for over a decade. Thousands of men have got back to feeling like themselves. These aren't cookie-cutter treatments. The Tennessee Men's Clinic is urology-based and staffed with multiple licensed providers who specialize in men's sexual health. They use proven treatments tailored to your specific situation. No one size fits all. Whether you're dealing with mild or moderate ED, performance issues, or even conditions like Peyronie's disease, their medical team will work with you to create a plan that gets results, often with options most men didn't even know were out there. Your initial appointment is only $99 and includes a full medical consultation, blood work, and if medically advised, a test dose right there in the office. So call them today at 615-208-9090. That's 615-208-9090 or book easily online at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com.
Welcome back. Okay, much to discuss. We're hanging out until 1 o'clock. Lucas Panzica and Robert Walsh with you. If you want to react to what you heard from Titans GM Mike Borganzi, 615-737-1045. We are, of course, on 1045 The Zone TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch for you to hop in on the F&M Bank chat, which is buzzing on this Wednesday. So, some big overarching bullet points, I feel like, from that press conference, right? For me, for the purposes of our discussion today, I'm looking at the three main ones. First and foremost, Jarvis Brownley. It's the first time we've gotten to hear Mike Borganzi or any Titans decision maker that's not a head coach that had nothing to do with the move talk about the Jarvis Brownley trade to the New York Jets. Jeffrey Simmons and the lack of a Jeffrey Simmons trade as Titans fans watched Quinnen Williams get dealt to Dallas in a blockbuster deal, which happened after the show. We haven't even talked about that yet, which we will. And also a lot of talk, of course, about Cam Ward and what he makes of Cam Ward's progress so far in his rookie year. And there's a lot of other stuff there about the moves they did not make. Mike Borganzi noted on a question from John Glennon that injuries did not play a factor in whether or not they traded anybody. He didn't, unsurprisingly, go deep into detail on why they didn't trade the likes of Chigakonkwo, Arden Key. Robert, I was slightly surprised that T'Vondre Sweat was not brought up at all in the conversation. There were reports his name continued to pop up as another one of these young players that was not a guy that Borganzi drafted, still on his rookie deal, that the Titans were reportedly, shopping, taking calls on, however you want to frame it. And then you get a report from Jordan Schultz after the deadline closes that he's a cornerstone piece and the Titans are moving forward with him. I'm surprised that didn't get asked about.
And it probably should have, but, I mean, there was so many things that you could find to – and don't get me wrong, I thought that was a great press conference. Probably the most informative press conference that we've gotten this year. But that is something – it is very telling that they were very quick to put out, no, we're not shopping Calvin Ridley, said nothing about T'Vondre Sweat. And then after the deadline passes, oh, no. We like that big fella over there. He is our Plymouth Rock. We can't get rid of him. It's funny that happened after the deadline.
Yeah, sure.
After the deadline.
Duck Falling on the F&M Bank chat says, I like what I heard, but I don't trust Brinker. I thought Borganzi did a good job. I thought he handled it well. Look, he is in a no-win situation publicly at the moment. He's just trying to wade through the mess, man, and make sense of it. And you heard the question about why should Titans fans trust this current leadership, and he was open about it and didn't get defensive about it, and I understand the question, and then all the other things that you expect to hear in that moment. But there is plenty to discuss from that press conference. And I think we start with the Jarvis Brownley trade, right? I mean, maybe that's not top of the docket as we're coming off the trade deadline and everybody was wondering if Jeffrey Simmons would be traded. We'll hear more from Mike Borganzi throughout the course of the show and throughout the course of the week on why they didn't trade Jeff, which, to their credit, they said they were steadfast the entire time that it wasn't going to happen. But Jarvis Brownley is the trade that I think still has Titans fans wringing their hands the most, especially as he gets to New York and seems to be a foundational piece now for the Jets and playing well, albeit for a terrible football team. I guess, is Jarvis Brownley now the best cornerback on the New York Jets?
Oh, that's
they traded Sauce Gardner.
Well, and they also traded Michael Carter.
That's right.
To the Eagles. So, by de facto, he is the best cornerback on the roster.
So this comes in a few parts. Let's start with the Jarvis Brownley discussion, and let's first hear Mike Borganzi, what he had to say about Jarvis Brownley in his opening statement before the questions came in. This was the Titans GM.
The roster decisions, a little bit of insight on some of the trades that we made. We are in constant evaluation mode here with players, with staff, and that comes, with players. It might be talent, it might be scheme fit, it might be culture fit. Word culture gets thrown around there a lot. So what do you mean by that? Well, it's the habits that we want to have with our players to create a winning culture here. It's the team first mentality. It's the accountability piece. It's the attention to detail piece. It's their willingness to work and get better every day. So that's what we're looking for when we're evaluating these players. And I know the first trade we made with Jarvis Brownley was I'm aware of it. It was controversial around here because he's a young player that was ascending. You're evaluating the fit, and without getting into a lot of details, I like Jarvis, and I think he's going to be a really good player in this league. We don't have the culture right now sometimes to help guys develop right now. And, you know, we thought at the time, you know, just some of the habits weren't conducive to building the culture right now. And I know it's hard to understand because he was a young player, and I wish Jarvis nothing but the best. The Roger McCreary trade, Roger, teammates loved him. You could tell they loved him. Roger's a good player. You know, it's part of the strategy when you're looking at the roster.
Okay, so he goes on to talk about Roger McCreary and the decision to trade him to the Rams, saw an opportunity there, and obviously they got more value for Roger McCreary than they did for Jarvis Brownley, which was next to nothing, a pick swap. So let's break that down. Jarvis Brownley, habits that were not conducive to building the culture that the Titans wanted or want for the organization. There were follow-ups there about Jarvis Brownley that we will hear from and continue to discuss. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. We will hear more from Mike Borganzi on the Jarvis Brownley Jr. trade next.
You want to make sure that your money is right. You want to make sure that you're financially independent. And that is something that Trajan Wealth can help you with because the holiday season is already upon us. It's not too late to check this year's financial resolution off your list. Give Trajan Wealth a call today to start achieving your financial goals, and they will put you in position to succeed. If you are wondering, do I have enough to retire or am I missing something? Meet with Trajan Wealth and at least get a second opinion because they will give you answers and a real plan. They're not just advisors, they're fiduciaries, and they will treat you like family. You will become a client because they will earn your trust and take the stress off your shoulders. Call Trajan Wealth and get your plan started today. 615-270-5000. That's 615-270-5000, or visit them online at TrajanWealth.com. Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This is a paid advertisement.
All right, trade deadline in the rear view. Let's do a quick recap here before we move forward and continue to hear what Mike Borganzi had to say, in particular for right now, about the Jarvis Brownley Jr. trade. Welcome back. Lucas Panzica, Robert Walsh with you. Buck out all week. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Oh, I am starving. That sounds amazing right now. So, to recap, a lot of the names that were thrown out there as potential sellable assets for the Titans are still on the roster. Jeffrey Simmons, Calvin Ridley, Chigakonkwo, Tavondre Sweat, Tony Pollard, Arden Key, all still around. The Titans ultimately made 3 moves going back to a couple of weeks ago, the first being the Jarvis Brownley Jr. trade. They then moved Roger McCreary, of course, last week to the Los Angeles Rams. And on Monday night, Draymond Jones to the Baltimore Ravens. The Titans netted in those 3 trades an upgraded 5th, an upgraded 6th, and a conditional 5th that can become a 4th. So the best that the Titans did in the trade deadline was move Draymond Jones in a pick that could be a 4th if he sacks opposing quarterbacks 2 or more times and the Ravens make the playoffs. And I think there is some hand-wringing from Titans fans after watching the Jets just go full-blown fire sale and collect, all the draft picks, 3 first-rounders, a second, a couple of players, throw in a 5th here or there. But the truth is, if the Titans were not going to move Jeffrey Simmons, which they were steadfast and consistent in saying they weren't, then you were never going to get anything even remotely close to that kind of return. So Titans fans can be upset that they didn't do more, but in reality, if you're being upset that the Titans didn't do more and you still didn't want them to trade Jeffrey Simmons, you don't get both, right? Because the best the Titans could have done is move a Chigakonkwo for a 5th or a 6th, right? Maybe you could have gotten an extra 6 out of the trade deadline if you did more than clearly what your fan base wants. And I'm not going to speak for Titans fans. I think there are plenty of folks that wish they had seen more moves, that wanted to see that sugar rush of more compensation. But I don't know, Robert. I throw my hands up in the air and say, I don't know what. You can't force other teams to give you draft picks for players that are on a 1-8 football team.
Yeah, and as far as fans go, that's what it is. We're fanatics about things. And no matter where you go, people are upset about things. I sent something to the Twitter group this morning about this Baltimore podcaster who's 3 of the Ravens' 2022 draft picks are off of the roster. It's so 6 of them, of the 9 picks, are still there. What are you complaining about? So, we're always going to overvalue our own players as fans, and we're going to undervalue whatever. Oh, we should have got more for this guy. So, I understand it, but it's our job as fans to educate ourselves so we don't get put in these positions where we're upset about not getting compensation or not trading for a great player.
Yeah. Draymond Jones, aside from Jeffrey Simmons, was by far your most sellable asset. 28 years old, seems like he's peaking right now in his career on a hot stretch of 4.5 sacks in 4 games, right? Not that expensive, 1-year deal. The Ravens are a team that need pass rush. There you go. You got a potential lower-end 4th out of it. That was your most sellable asset outside of the untouchable Jeffrey Simmons. So you can be upset that the Titans didn't get an extra 1 or 2 6th-round draft picks if you want to. I think it's a bit of a waste of time. I don't think that criticism is warranted for the Titans today. Now, the Jarvis Brownley trade is something that is worth that discussion. Even though it happened weeks ago, we, for the first time, have a Titans decision-maker from the front office explaining it to us. And Mike Borganzi, to his credit, understood that those questions were going to come and was prepared with answers. And we played for you what he said about Brownley in his opening statement in the last segment, essentially, before we move on to the questions he answered about it, that felt some of Brownley's habits weren't conducive to building the culture as they evaluate the fit. He said, we don't have the culture to help guys develop right now in that regard. Okay, habits not conducive to building the culture, so the Titans media corps did some digging on that, and here was the exchange between Mike Borganzi and Titans reporters.
When you talk about the habits conducive with Jarvis, I know you probably don't want to get into the specifics of what those were, but can you talk us through what habits you want?
Well, I think I touched on just the accountability piece, attention to detail, the willingness to get better every day, and so I don't want to specifically, touch on that because Jarvis is a great kid, and I wish nothing but success for him.
When you say that there are some times that you can't teach that culture with the program you have now?
Yeah, that's hard to explain sometimes with the culture in the locker room. When you have a standard in the locker room at some point, when you're winning a lot of games, when you bring a player in, they know exactly what they need to do, or they know they won't be there very long. There's a standard there, so we're trying to create a standard. And sometimes that's hard to articulate to people and the fans, but when you're in a locker room, you feel it, and when you're around a winning team, you feel it. I certainly felt it in Kansas City. Every person that we brought in there, they knew right away. If Pat and Kelsey were out there practicing every day hard, I better be out there practicing every day hard. So we need to create that standard here, and we do have some pieces here. I want to highlight Jeff Simmons. Jeff has been tremendous. Jeff was a player that came in this league and they were winning, and he's gone through some losing seasons here right now. And I communicate with Jeff a lot, and Jeff is a big part of why we're going to turn this thing around here. He is. He's one of the better players in the league, and his leadership with these young guys has been tremendous.
Okay, so that kind of starts with Brownlee and ends up with Jeff and the foundational culture piece that we know Jeff to be. But to what he said about Jarvis Brownley Jr., when it comes to his habits and the things that I guess he wasn't willing to do, the attention to detail side of things, that is the only explanation that makes sense, right? Like, that is the only way that you can make sense of the trade, is that Jarvis Brownley was some sort of issue from a personality standpoint that was counterproductive to what the Titans are trying to build, what kind of culture they're trying to put together here in this rebuild. And I hate to say at the early onset of this rebuild, but as tough a pill that is to swallow, this year is the first time the Titans have ever gone about things as though it is a legitimate down-to-the-foundation rebuild. And people don't want to hear that because it's been losing football for a couple of years, but that is what it is, right? So that's the only thing that makes sense, Robert, but it is hard to see when there are no glaring issues that we're privy to, and we don't see what happens in the locker room and in the meetings, and I get that. But I'll admit, even for me, it's hard to make sense of that. Like, what Borganzi is saying is the only way it makes sense, but yet still you watch Jarvis Brownley Jr. go to New York and be a player that isn't just productive on the field, but is being talked about by people that cover that team as the exact type of culture setter that Aaron Glenn needs in that defense. Like, how do you make those things connect? I'm still having a really hard time with it.
Well, both of those things can be true, right? What he's saying can be true, and it can also still be a head-scratching decision. And also, we don't know what's going on with Jarvis in New York. Maybe this lit a fire under him. Maybe this made him change his process. Maybe this made him look inward and decide, like, okay, maybe I'm not doing some of the things correctly. So, like, the day-to-day changes that happen, we have no clue about that. But I think what you're saying is true. Both of those things can be true. What he's saying makes sense, but it's still a head-scratching move. Now, a question that popped in my head, what if roles were reversed and they kept Jarvis Brownley, but instead traded T'Vondre Sweat, who before the trade deadline ended was there's someone the quote was, they hope another coaching staff can reach him.
So for Albert Breer reported, one interesting name regarding the Titans could be uber-talented but underachieving defensive tackle T'Vondre Sweat, whom teams have sniffed around on a bit. In parentheses, he says Tennessee would like to see if a new staff can reach him.
So if the roles were reversed, and just for draft capital sake, we'll change the draft picks around. If roles were reversed and T'Vondre Sweat was traded for a fourth-round pick, but they kept Jarvis Brownley to affect the culture, would we feel any differently about this? I think we might feel worse about this.
Well, you would have actually gotten something, right?
You would have gotten a fourth-round pick.
Which you didn't really get anything for Brownlee, a pick exchange that turns your 6 into a 5th, you know. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
But like, what's the difference between those two players? Like, the concerns about Sweat initially were, okay, his work ethic, and we don't want that to affect other players, what have you. And Jarvis Brownlee also has these work habits. So what's the difference in those two players?
Yeah. Right. Well, the thing that both of those players have in common is any sort of issues bubbling under the surface in that regard have never shown up on game day, right? Like, they have been rare bright spots on a Titans team that hasn't had a lot of bright spots in the last couple of years. And that's what makes it so difficult for people to understand, myself included. But, yeah, you're right about that Albert Breer reporting. Clearly, someone's communicating to Albert Breer that the Titans are, we're not really happy with what's going on with T'Vondre Sweat. Maybe another staff can reach him. I mean, it makes it seem like he's walled off, right? Like he's just not willing to connect with coaches or what have you. And then after the trade deadline passes, Jordan Schultz gets out there with the report that despite league-wide interest, the Titans are not trading T'Vondre Sweat. Schultz goes on to report they view him as a young, ascending cornerstone, a key part of their future plans, and have made it clear they're not looking to move him. Very, very big departure from what Albert Breer was reporting literally like 24 hours ago.
And I will say my issue is not with, they should have traded him. My issue is just with the messaging. I think it would have been dumb to trade him. You invested a high capital pick into him, and he has shown up on the field. You have to find a way to bridge between guys that don't show up on practice but show up on game day and not just say, somebody else will figure it out. So I think keeping him was a smart move. My issue is with the messaging.
Sure. And the Brownlee thing, it remains a head scratcher, and we're not privy to stuff in that building, and I get that. So there could always be something that we don't know, but not knowing does make it harder to understand as the Titans move forward here. Post-trade deadline, of course, there's more moves they can make in the offseason. Okay, we're going to circle back to this, but let's switch gears. Dumbest thing in sports, we are pushing to 11:45, but David Ubben is coming up at 11:20 because we have college football playoff rankings, and SEC observations are next.
Hey dads, want an epic night with your kids? Head to Nissan Stadium for the Nashville All-Pro Dad Experience. On November 7th from 6 to 8:30 p.m., you'll make memories with your family as you run on the field and enjoy bonding activities. Expect fun, laughs, and fatherhood tips from Tennessee Titans long snapper Morgan Cox to help you be a better dad. All for less than a trip through the drive-thru. Just $35 gets you an unforgettable time with your kids. Register today at allprodad.com/events. The Nashville All-Pro Dad Experience is brought to you by Amazon, Arby's Foundation, Coca-Cola Consolidated, Colgate Bright Smiles, Bright Futures, and Pinnacle Financial Partners.
Smashville hockey. Around here, it can sound like a language of its own. But hey, if you can pronounce Demumbrian, then names like Yossi, Shea, Marchessault will roll right off the tongue. Nashville Predators. Only in Smashville.
My dad and I used to golf together all the time, but when he hurt his back, it was over.
To have your son want to spend time with you is amazing. That's why my chronic back pain has been so heartbreaking. Surgery, fused bones, long recovery. No way, not for me. A friend recommended stem cells, so I gave Kellum Stem Cell Institute a call.
I'm glad you're out on the course.
Yeah, it's really good.
Call the Kellum Stem Cell Institute today. Swing still looks just okay, though.
One of the largest sports books east of the Mississippi, Circa Sports Kentucky, is now open. Catch all your favorite games on an 80-foot screen with stadium-style seating and live VSiN broadcast daily. Circa Sports, now open at the Mint Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
.11:03, good afternoon from the Circa Sports Studios. I am Robert Walsh. The trade deadline came and went yesterday. We saw the Jets fully embrace the rebuild, trading cornerback Sauce Gardner to the Colts for 2 first-round picks and A.D. Mitchell, also sending defensive lineman Quinnen Williams to the Cowboys for a 2026 second and a 2027 first. Titans stood firm at the deadline as rumors swirled around Tavondre Sweat. After the deadline, Jordan Schultz reposted, quote, they view him as a young ascending cornerstone, a key part of their future plans, and have made it clear they're not looking to move him. Some free agency news, the Carolina Panthers would release former Vols quarterback Hendon Hooker from the practice squad after signing him in August. And in college basketball last night, Duke took down Texas 75-60 after a soft first half. Cameron Boozer bounced back to finish with a double-double, scoring 15 and pulling down 13 boards. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone. Kalen DeBoer.
I'm free. We did it. No more sec dungeon.
I was wondering.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, I thought you loved it.
Spooky season's over.
Yeah, there's still scary movies in Christmas time. You ain't never seen Santa's Sleigh with Goldberg? There's scary Christmas movies.
I've seen Krampus.
Krampus?
Yeah.
Scary Christmas movie?
Decent movie. Scary, but not scary. Like I like a scary, but not that scary movie.
If you are an SEC fan looking at the college football playoff, that may be a little scary.
Ooh, depends what fan base you're a part of.
That's true.
How are Vanderbilt fans feeling today? CFP rankings, first one of the season, came out yesterday, so we learn all sorts of new things. Who the new committee members are, which sitting athletic director we all get to be angry at for the course of the season for his explanations to the ESPN crew each and every Tuesday the rest of the way. What are their parameters? And a takeaway after the first one is vibes. Like, I feel like this committee's just eyeballing it. And this isn't SEC related because the top 2 teams in the CFP ranking are Big Ten teams. But Ohio State 1, Indiana 2. To me, if you're going by the metrics and strength of record and quality of wins and all of these things between 2 undefeated teams in the Big Ten, I don't know how you don't put Indiana number 1. with arguably the best win in the country for any team so far. Indiana went on the road, and they beat Oregon. The best win for a team that is still in the playoff discussion. And all else is pretty neck and neck between IU and Ohio State. In fact, Indiana is 9-0. Ohio State is 8-0. I have a hard time with that. That doesn't really matter. They'll see each other in the Big Ten championship game. They'll both be in regardless. That part will work itself out. But it does kind of set a baseline for how this committee is viewing things. And I feel like this committee looked at Ohio State and Indiana and said, yeah, but Ohio State, look at Ohio State. Look what Ohio State's got. They're the number one team in the country. AP poll agrees. All right, we move on. Regarding the SEC, Texas A&M 3, Alabama 4, Georgia 5, Ole Miss 6. No other SEC teams in the top 10, just those 4. There are several SEC teams that are still alive with a path to the college football playoff as you go further down the list. And Texas is 11, Oklahoma is 12. Vanderbilt is the number 16 team in the CFP ranking. Missouri is the number 22 team. Now, David Ubben, coming up of The Athletic, is going to break down some of his takeaways from the CFP ranking. And I want to ask him, Robert, if he sees a path towards a 10-2 SEC team being left out, because I can't shake this. I feel like there's been discussions popping up of a scenario where a 3-loss SEC team, maybe Oklahoma, if they lose at Bama but win out against Missouri and LSU, maybe if Texas loses at Georgia or wins at Georgia and then drops their regular season finale against Texas A&M. Could that 3-loss Texas team sneak in? I'm on the other side of that. I'm wondering if there's a 10-2 SEC team that could be left out. And I'm wondering if Vandy fans need to be rooting for some other things to happen as they sit here at 16, still with Auburn, Kentucky, and a road trip to Tennessee to go. We know Vandy has to win out. That part obviously is there. And in the end, these things typically take care of themselves, but I'm just kind of looking at the amount of SEC teams with a path and the idea that Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, and Ole Miss are all virtually locks to get in, barring something very unexpected, which absolutely can and has happened. But then that's already 4. And then we're getting into a fifth or a sixth SEC team with 2 or less losses vying to get in. That could very well be the case for Texas or Oklahoma or Vanderbilt or Missouri. Now, they all have varying degrees of difficulty, like Missouri sitting there at 22 in the country, and they still have Texas A&M at home, Mississippi State at home. They got to go to Oklahoma and then close out against Arkansas. Missouri's chances of running the table with the true freshman at quarterback in for the injured Bo Pribula, it's a tall task. Vanderbilt, still very much with the pathway, but do they need help? And what kind of help do they need? Do they need the ACC to be a 1-bid league? How about your ACC, by the way? Miami, a 2-loss team. I don't see a path for them to get in, as the committee doesn't think too much of the Hurricanes dropping them to 18, which I think does match up with the AP poll.
Well, Georgia Tech is the real sleeper here.
That's right.
Them being all the way down at, what are they, 18, 17?
They dropped one last weekend.
Well, okay, they lost one game. What do you mean? There's a bunch of one-loss. The whole thing is one-loss teams. Dude, give Georgia Tech some respect. I know they haven't beaten anybody, but okay, go through the other list. There's a bunch of these teams that have not beat anyone. Ohio State has beaten no one, and they're number 1.
They beat Texas.
They beat Texas. Texas shouldn't even be on the list. Texas should have been dropped a while ago. Vanderbilt should have beaten. I don't know. Don't get me fired up about the ACC. Georgia Tech deserves a spot at the table.
What do you have to say, though, for the ACC about...
And then Notre Dame with 2 losses at 10.
No, that's the most egregious part of this. Notre Dame coming in at number 10, ahead of Texas and Oklahoma, is insanity to have as many losses as Texas and OU. And Texas has the win over Oklahoma. Oklahoma has the win over Tennessee. Notre Dame has quality losses, but beyond beating USC, what in the world has Notre Dame done to warrant being a top 10 team? And this is exactly what we were afraid was going to happen when they lost that week 2 game against Texas A&M. Was it week 2? Either way, when they dropped that second loss against Texas A&M, this is exactly what we feared. Oh, Notre Dame's out of it at 0-2. No, they're not. They're going to run this table. They're going to play nobody down the stretch. They're going to go 10-2, and they're going to get in. And it seems like that's exactly what it's setting up for.
We'll get a little movement in the top 10, though, because BYU and Texas Tech play each other this week. So I think BYU's a fraud anyway, but that's a thought for another day. I don't understand them being in the top 10, but they have also played absolutely no one outside of Utah.
Yeah, they beat Utah.
And the Pirates should have beat them.
Yeah, right.
Don't go look at the score. Don't go look at the score. If you just look at the score, you're going to go, Robert, you're an idiot. And you might say that anyway. But if you go back and watch the game, 3 mistakes caused that fall. If they would have played,
had them on the ropes. ECU had BYU on the ropes.
That was in Provo, dude. They could have won that game.
Oh, man. So it was a close game. Let's check the score. 34-13.
No, don't do that.
Man.
Don't do that. It was closer than that. It was closer than the score indicated. Dang it.
But here's the thing with these SEC teams. The one with the easiest path forward is Ole Miss, who's already in there at 6. Their remaining schedule consists of the Citadel at home, Florida at home, as they try to avenge an upset loss at Florida last week. Anything could happen in that game. And then at Mississippi State, which I'll admit, the Egg Bowl's got kind of a weird vibe to it this year. Mississippi State's been so close on so many occasions against some of these ranked teams and has come up short. They finally got their first SEC win last weekend against Arkansas in a shootout. That game is at Davis Wade Stadium. The cowbells are going to be clanging. I don't think there's a weirder rivalry in the SEC, like the cliche of throw the records out of the window. To me, that applies to the Egg Bowl more so than any other SEC rivalry. Something to kind of keep an eye on Thanksgiving weekend, assuming Ole Miss takes care of business leading up to that point. Georgia. Georgia has at Mississippi State, Texas at home, Charlotte, and at Georgia Tech, which is intriguing. Texas has the toughest road, in my opinion, as they go to Georgia, host Arkansas, and host Texas A&M to finish it out. So, again, these things could take care of themselves. Texas could lose that game to Georgia, essentially eliminating themselves as a 3-loss team. They could lose at home to Texas A&M, right? Vanderbilt could certainly fall in Knoxville. Oklahoma could lose in Tuscaloosa this weekend. Bama will be absolutely favored in that game. And next thing you know, we're down to 4 or 5, and it's like, okay, everybody's going to get in that deserves to get in. But I don't know. I'm sitting around looking for a chaos scenario of a 2-loss SEC team potentially being left out. Let's hear what David Ubben has to say about it. Of The Athletic gives us his reactions to the first CFP ranking of the year coming up next.
HVAC, plumbing, or electrical emergency. That's why you make sure that you have the Happy Hiller folks on speed dial, because no one wants to deal with that. And most of the time, you don't know what it will cost or if it'll get fixed correctly or if someone is just trying to sell you something. That's when you call Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, because their experts are going to solve your problems quickly. And the price that you're told is the price that you'll actually pay. No hidden fees or surprises when you get your bill. Hiller has been in business for over 35 years and is family owned and operated. Their techs are professional, experienced, and trustworthy. When they're on their way, you'll receive a photo of the tech and a link to track them in real time. No more wasting time waiting around. 100% satisfaction guarantee of happy you'll be, or the service is free. That's the Happy Hiller promise. So book online today at happyhiller.com.
Oh, it's one of the most enjoyable games to play during the college football season. Trying to figure out what everyone's going to be mad about after that first college football playoff ranking. Trying to figure out which sitting athletic director is going to be in the crosshairs of college football fans across the country. And we have that first ranking. Welcome back. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken, and we are glad to have David Ubben of The Athletic with us to react to it. David, good morning. Appreciate you doing this.
Good morning. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it for having me.
Well, we can go right from the jump at the top of the ranking. You know, it's not the end-all, be-all, right, whether Ohio State or Indiana is ranked number 1 versus number 2. They're going to play each other in the Big Ten championship game in all likelihood. That type of thing will get itself worked out. They're both going to be in. But it does kind of set the table, right, for how the committee is going to view some of these teams and what other than vibes and eyeball test can back the committee's decision to put Ohio State above Indiana at number 1 to you.
Recruiting rankings. I mean, like a lot of that comes down to it. Like you look at the team talent composite. I think Indiana's 14th or 15th in the Big Ten. Ohio State, obviously, first. So, you know, I have a hard time believing that doesn't factor into it. History, all of those things, the playoff last year, watching Ohio State's run. You know, based on what you've seen this year in terms of just dominance, quality wins, I'm not sure how you get Ohio State over Indiana, but yeah, like you said, ultimately it doesn't really matter, but it seems odd.
So what did you take most issue with last night?
I wouldn't say I took a lot of issue with a lot. I think I was just mostly intrigued to see how the Big 12 and ACC were going to be treated with the new metrics. And ultimately, it seems like the metrics, again, you got the sort of moment of truth in Selection Sunday. You got a month here where we're going to see it adjust. But I feel like they're pretty fair to the Big 12 and the ACC. The ACC doesn't really have anybody that's been that impressive this year. So they're sort of off to the side. But to Big 12, you know, you've got BYU at 8. You've got Utah at 12, Texas Tech at 12, and Utah right behind them. Utah is significantly higher than they were in the human polls, and I think that's the committee respecting the dominance that Texas Tech and Utah have shown, despite the fact that, yeah, obviously Utah has 2 losses. Texas Tech has the 1 to Arizona State. Should be noted their starting quarterback was out in that game. But their collective margin of victory, I think it's 34.6 points for Texas Tech, 36.4 for Utah. They've been blowing people out. There's something to be said for that. And then some good wins, some decent wins. Obviously nothing, you know, magnificent for those teams other than beating each other. So I think the Big 12 should be pretty happy. Their road to 3 bids is there, more likely 2. But those teams were respected. And it seems like the metrics in the first one, the fears of the SEC Big Ten Invitational seem a little bit unfounded at this point.
And it certainly sets the table for that game in Lubbock on Saturday, BYU at Texas Tech, 11 a.m. Central. David Ubben with us of The Athletic. He hosts the Bunch Formation podcast alongside Chris Vanini at David Ubben on Twitter. So to your point about the Big 12 with that pathway to getting 2, maybe even 3 teams in, I cannot shake this feeling, David, that at some point there's going to be not a 3-loss SEC team that feels snubbed, but a 2-loss SEC team that feels snubbed. And nobody seems to agree with me on that. And there's kind of this general feeling that, no, that's going to work itself out. And obviously there's plenty of crossover in the schedules of a lot of these SEC teams that are technically still in the hunt, right? Like Missouri theoretically is still in the hunt, would have to win out against the likes of A&M and Oklahoma with a freshman quarterback. We understand that challenge. But is that door at all open to you? Because I look at Vanderbilt at number 16, and I look at maybe, if they win out, but some other things don't happen and the Big 12 continues that momentum, that there is that kind of scenario.
I don't see it. I mean, I think you'd need basically no upsets everywhere else. I mean, ultimately, I think when it comes down to it, getting to Selection Sunday, having a 2-loss SEC team, unless their resume was just completely devoid of anything, like Missouri, you know, right now their best win is probably Kansas, but they've got A&M, they've got Oklahoma coming up, so like that will change over time. I just don't. I mean, I think ultimately those 2-loss teams are going to collect wins in the back half where they'll be fine and move up as needed. I think ultimately the committee really cares who you beat and where you beat them, and those opportunities will be there. You know, last year Miami was kind of a special scenario. I'm skeptical that we're going to get any 2-loss teams at the end of the season that aren't in the field from the Power 4 conferences.
You mentioned the metrics, how that's changed this year for the committee. Is strength of record kind of the headliner in that change, that pivot this year to what they're valuing in 2025?
Well, I mean, strength of record is like mostly a made up stat that ESPN uses. Like, I respect it from what it means, but we don't, it's hard to know exactly what the committee is looking at because they don't make their metrics public, what they actually use. And anybody who's gone through the mock selection process, you kind of see how it works and you can see what they're looking at, but you can't really extrapolate the data from the tests that you do in the mock selection where it's a couple years back to what they're seeing now and what their strength of schedule metrics say, and what all of those things add up to. So it's hard to say. We don't really know exactly what the committee is looking at, and certainly that lack of transparency has come under fire. But, some of this is just sort of misplaced consternation. I think ultimately the committee has mostly gotten everything right. And if you look at what the committee has done, and this is mostly in the top four, obviously last year it sort of changed. But if you compare what the committee has done to what the BCS computers would have spit out, it's like almost identical for every single year. So, it's sort of, people were mad about the computers. Now people are mad about the committee. And obviously last year the SEC put a pretty big stink about like, hey, we got to lock this down. If Indiana and SMU were in our league, they wouldn't have the same record that they do, all that stuff. They got those things changed. I don't know. I think the committee generally does a pretty good job.
David Ubben of The Athletic with us. So what has drawn the most ire to you? Would it be Notre Dame cracking the top 10 ahead of Texas and Oklahoma?
I mean, so we talked about this on my podcast with Chris last night, Bunch Formation, and I'll listen to the argument that like Notre Dame is getting the benefit of the doubt of losing, obviously it's a better team, but losing early and then stacking wins since then. Whereas Miami seems like they're stumbling, bumbling, fumbling down the stretch here. And they're separated by 8 spots, despite the fact that obviously Miami won that game and they have the same record. I think I'm okay with that mostly. Like, Miami has not looked good. I don't think Louisville is that great. SMU, I think, is okay, but you're still talking about, I think, a 3-loss team at this point. So, it is what it is versus Miami or versus Notre Dame, which obviously has close losses to some really, really good teams in A&M and then Miami. So, I'm okay with it. Like 8 spots is pretty high, but if you get them too close, then it seems silly that Miami is not above Notre Dame based on head-to-head and the comparable record. But when you look at the losses, you look at the resumes are pretty close, but how you played recently, I think probably should have some effect on how you're viewed by the committee.
What is the feeling right now in Miami around Mario Cristobal and a team that had a real argument to be arguably the best team in the country, a national title contender like 3 weeks ago, David, and then they dropped 2 winnable games and Carson Beck's throwing interceptions that are as ill-timed as they can be, and it kind of feels like deja vu from a year ago.
It's crazy that we're sitting here, it's November 5th, and if they win out, they're still probably going to need some help at 18 to make the field.
Or to get into the ACC championship game even.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably more likely than them getting an at-large bid. The ACC has a pretty bad habit of eating its own. So, they keep winning. We'll see how that shakes out. But, man, just the game management stuff, I said it after that Notre Dame win in week 1. Like, they made some weird decisions, like settling for some of these field goals. The way that they handled that game down the stretch was not how you'd want to, but they got away with it, and a win is a win is a win. But it caught up to them late. Some of these decisions that they made, obviously the SMU game stands out. Some of the late game management was not great. But, if you can't get into the playoff this year with this team, maybe you get one more year where there's full investment. And then at that point, like Miami just had too much talent the last couple of years, and they've flamed out in pretty spectacular ways. I mean, blowing a 21-point lead to Syracuse when you're right there. I mean, that's you end up in the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which some would say is more prestigious than the playoff, but I don't know that Miami fans would agree. But again, this year, you're right there. You've got all the pieces. You're really good on both sides of the line, and you lose games you shouldn't. And, losing games as big favorites seems to be Miami's MO the last couple of years. And I can't blame the Hurricane fans for feeling as frustrated as they do.
Yeah, you make a fair point. It's malpractice to me for the Pop-Tart Bowl to not be a part of the playoff, to be honest.
I'm with you.
I'm with you. Move the Orange Bowl over or something. So that discussion, what you just laid out about Mario Cristobal, you say that, and I'm getting reminded by discussions that have popped up this week from Tennessee fans about Josh Heupel. Now, that has been met by voices across college football with what the hell are you talking about, to even remotely question the idea that Josh Heupel and his job should be in any sort of question. But it was a frustrating way to lose and be knocked out of contention last week against Oklahoma, David. I'm curious, as somebody that has been around the Tennessee program a lot, lived in Knoxville for a time, what you make of Tennessee, where they are, kind of stacking up with the preseason expectation versus how that expectation kind of shifted as the season went along.
I mean, I don't think it can just be about this season. I just don't think it can be. And I think people forget that their last coach lost to Georgia State in the best season that he ever had. And the previous coach, is wanting to put banners up and commemorate 9-win seasons. And this stretch that Josh has had, as successful as anything that we've seen in Tennessee since Phil Fulmer. And I think also you look at how they've stacked up against their rivals, the Florida, the Georgia, the Alabama part of it. Under Jeremy Pruitt, under Butch Jones, they just felt miles apart from those teams as they picked up speed and as you've seen Alabama become what Alabama was, as Georgia became a juggernaut in Florida's good years. Tennessee just felt so far from them. Now, they were the better team against Georgia. Should have won that game, lost that game. Alabama, much closer than the score indicated, but you can't watch that game and say that team is on another plane compared to Tennessee. Whereas for most of the last 20 years, Alabama's been playing a different sport than Tennessee. That's no longer happening. That has to be a factor in all this. I agree. It's fair to be frustrated with how things have gone, some of the game management, some of the clock management stuff that Josh Heupel has done. But I don't know how you look at the last 20 years and say, this can't get worse, or how you look at the last 4 years and say, this can't get better. Why can't it? It's a pretty small sample size, and you're sitting here, and Josh Heupel has beaten Alabama twice in 4 years. It's pretty good. So, I get the frustration. I don't think anybody's asking him to not be frustrated, but maybe there's changes. I agree the red zone has not been the same since Alec Golish left, but some of the frustration just seems way overstated. And I think it's a symptom of what we've seen in college football, that nobody can have kind of a down year. And I just think when you look at this year as a whole, despite how the team played in the first 7-8 games of the year, you're still talking about a team that went to the playoff last year and lost basically everyone. You've played this season without your top 2 cornerbacks, one of whom was an All-American. You lost your quarterback after spring practice and had to scrounge around and find one wherever you could. And you're sitting here at 6-3, a few plays away from being in the SEC title hunt, in the playoff hunt. Rebuilding years exist. I don't know what to tell people. And you can say it changed or whatever, but at the end of the day, they still don't quite have the horses to expect them to win 10, 11 games with this team. That's just the reality of it. And they played probably over their skis a little bit in the first half of the season. But this is kind of where Tennessee has looked like they were probably going to be all year. And a lot of seasons come down to a couple breaks. If you catch a ball on 4th down, do you beat Oklahoma? If you don't get kind of a weird scoop and score, if Miles Kitselman can tackle R. Mason Thomas, is that game different? If the kicker doesn't have a career game, does that game go differently? If Georgia can't complete a miracle 4th down, deep ball to London Humphreys and the over-the-shoulder catch, does that game play out differently? If you don't throw a pick 6 at the goal line against Alabama, does that game play out differently? People just perspective. Stuff happens. You can't just look at, well, we lost and now I'm mad. Yes, that's fair. But a little perspective, you don't have to look at it from a 30,000-foot view. How about a 150-foot view and not look pressed up against the glass? We lost to Oklahoma. Get this guy out of here. Come on now.
Right. Now, I think those are few and far between, but it has created enough to elicit a response, it seems, from across the country. And no, it's well said. And the thing is, even before the season, David, Tennessee fans are like, all right, let's go 8-4 here and pack it up for 2026. And then it's amazing what one good performance against Georgia can do to completely rewrite your expectations of college football playoff or bust.
I mean, listen, that's sort of where it is. And I think, again, I just keep coming back to Tennessee doesn't look like it's playing with a short deck when it goes up against the class of the SEC. And for most of the last decade, you're bracing for impact when you play the best teams in the SEC. And that's not happening anymore, in part because Georgia and Alabama have come back to the field a little bit, but in part because Tennessee has raised their game under Josh Heupel. And I just think when it comes down to it, the fact that Tennessee, when's the last time Tennessee played a game that people thought they got no chance to win? Like maybe year one, maybe? Like that's something. And for the last 15 years, Tennessee was playing 1 to 3 of those a year where people are just like, let's not get anybody hurt. Let's not embarrass ourselves. And let's just get out of here. And those games don't happen anymore. And I think that there's something to be said for that.
No doubt. David Ubben of The Athletic with us. So now Tennessee has to try and beat Florida on the road for the first time in over 2 decades and play spoiler for Vanderbilt. That's kind of what the season boils down to, as Vandy just comes up short in that crazy comeback bid against Texas. Is there anything more that you want to learn about this Vanderbilt team before you're convinced that they are legitimately a contender to go to the college football playoff and make some noise? Or are you kind of there? What are your expectations at this point for this stretch as Vandy has Auburn, Kentucky, and then, of course, at Tennessee?
I was surprised that they lost the line of scrimmage as badly as they did against Texas. Their defense has been so stout all season long, in part because they have played really well up front. Texas, good athletes, but not necessarily world beaters when you really watch them play. I was surprised at that. They were getting kind of blown off the ball a little bit. And so, you got to prove yourself there. Vandy hadn't played a lot of these games where they're going into Auburn and Kentucky games feeling like we just got to take care of business. Vandy doesn't play a lot of take care of business games, but they got some there. And then they'll probably be dogs coming into Tennessee and your season. And quite frankly, when's the next time Vandy is going to be in the playoff? I don't know. But I think when you have the 12-team playoff, the idea of Vanderbilt playing in it, was not something that I think a lot of people thought they'd see very often, if ever. And so, that's going to be one of the biggest games in Vanderbilt history if they can get in the playoff and beat their rival in the process. So, they're going to be underdogs in that game, but they got to play. The defense has to improve based on what we've seen from them against Texas and get back to how they looked in games earlier this season. They really gave Missouri a pounding, and they just got to take care of business against Auburn and Kentucky. And then, the Tennessee game, they're going to have to cut it loose in that one. That'll be interesting. Yeah, we got to survive the interim coach bump potentially as they host Auburn this weekend. A talented Auburn team. So disappointing, David, that we don't get to see Diego Pavia try and go 4-0 against Hugh Freeze. But Auburn makes that move this week. And as he goes down and we're seeing this carnage across the SEC coaching carousel, is there another name at the front of the mind for you when you talk about the hot seat and another guy to get added onto the buyout pile? In the SEC or it can be elsewhere. I mean, I $53 million is a lot, but I don't know how much more Florida State can take. Yeah. You sort of stave it off last week by dominating Wake Forest, but Florida State has piled up some really rough losses, and ironically, it'd be interesting to see how this season looks if instead of beating Bama in that first game, maybe they lose close. I think a lot of people sort of thought after they win that game, well, we fixed the program, and now, this team is obviously better than it was a year before, more committed than it was a year before. But based on kind of the narrative of the season, it doesn't necessarily feel that way, in part because of how it started. But, Florida State doesn't put up with this kind of stuff for very long, and they're too talented, and there's too much tradition there to allow that. So when you look at the totality of the Mike Norvell era, the 13-0 season in 23 looks more like the outlier than what we've seen the last 2 seasons. What's the most interesting dynamic for you to watch down the stretch with the college football playoff discussion? I'm going to still keep an eye on where the SEC teams are relative to how many losses they have and stacked up to the rest of college football. Right now we talk about the Big 12 at the top. based on how those teams are stacked up and how many losses you've got and how your resume is being viewed and kind of graded or appreciated, they got to be feeling pretty good. But is there a bump that happens later in the season where you start seeing 2 and 3 loss SEC teams start climbing above, 2 and 1 loss teams from the ACC or from the Big 12? I don't know. That's the most interesting thing, I think, for me to keep an eye on.
David Ubben of The Athletic has been our guest. David, really appreciate the time, man, and all the reaction. We'll talk soon.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Love you, David.
Appreciate y'all. Thanks.
Thank you. He didn't hear you, buddy. He didn't hear you.
He definitely heard me.
No, he didn't hear you.
It's okay.
He didn't hear you. He's taking his headphones off, and he was, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
At David Ubben on Twitter.
He's a great guy.
Great guy.
Just doesn't love me back.
Really good at what he does. Bunch Formation is the podcast. Check out his work with Chris Vanini and read his work on The Athletic at David Ubben on Twitter. He didn't hear you, pal.
It's okay.
What do we have to give away for the dumbest thing in sports?
Oh, boy. Do we have 2 tickets to go see Bring Me the Horizon? I don't know if they actually sound like that. Someone told me they were a Screamo band, and I'm just assuming that's what they sound
No, it's a safe assumption, I think. 615-737-1045 for a pair of tickets to
Bring Me the Horizon.
All you got to do is give us the dumbest thing in sports this week. We'll do it next. Bring me the Horizon tickets on the line.
No,
Go ahead.
You do it. You do it. That was bad.
Was that good?
That was better than I thought.
Did you like that?
I don't know why you muffled it. Why do you think that's how they get the growl?
Yeah.
Why am I doing it now? Bring me the. Okay, maybe it does sound better. Points to you.
615-737-1045. Where's the show?
Oh, that's a great question. Give me a guess. Where do you think Bring Me the Horizon would be?
I'm going to say Ascend.
It's at Breakstone.
615-737-1045. The best submission gets the tickets. I'll lead us off. My dumbest thing in sports this week is Bill O'Brien, who in year one at Boston College, if you forgot, he is the head coach at Boston College, went 7-6, made a bowl game, lost it, so 7-5 in the regular season. Nice little promising start. Of course, Thomas Castellanos at quarterback, a big part of that. Year two has been a disaster for Bill O'Brien at BC. They are 1-8. 1-8 in year two, and this was an exchange that Bill O'Brien had with a member of the Boston College media just the other day.
Coach, wondering, do you have a message for the fans? Obviously losing to Notre Dame, Catholic school rival, 1-8 now in the season BC. I've heard from a lot of fans. They're just really
I'm really glad. You know, I'm glad you're down. I'm not down. Nobody's down. We're fighting. We're competing. You know, it's the second year of this program, Mike. You always come in here with these down questions. Like, you show up like once a month or something like that. You come in here with these down questions. I'm not down. I don't know what year you graduated from BC, but this is a program that we're building. Okay. Nobody here's down. We're positive. We're going to show up and play our asses off against SMU. You can go out there in your dark, clouded world or whatever it is and do what you want to do. We're not down. The sun is up, and we're fighting. That's my message to the fans. What's up, Trevor?
Hate to be Trevor in that scenario. Hope Trevor didn't have a negative question for Bill O'Brien.
Coach. What were the things that went right at practice this week, Coach?
Right.
Me when my buddy Trevor joins the Discord chat.
What's up, Trevor?
How's it going, buddy? Good to see you. Glad to hear that ba-ding that you joined.
Come on, man.
What? Is there anything better, though, than coaches getting upset that someone's not buying into what they're selling?
Well, it's not even, the thing is, the reporter's not even challenging him, right? Like, we did this with Brian Kelly a few weeks ago. Brian Kelly, very unlikable figure. Never been a fan of Brian Kelly, but I did defend him when he kind of went at a reporter after a win, a rivalry win over a talented Florida team at home. And the first question is the presser is, what's wrong with your run game, right? And Brian Kelly lost his mind. I was on Brian Kelly's side of that because it's like, come on, man. Like, to me, there's just a way to do these things. And, you know, who am I to talk? I'm not in these press conferences. But I feel like this reporter was coming from a place of sensitivity, right? Like, hey, Bill, just what do you say to the fans? You're 1-8 in year two. This isn't 2004. You don't get 5 years to build your program anymore. I get you lost your quarterback in the offseason, but my goodness. And I'm sure he's under a lot of pressure, and he's feeling it. And I wouldn't be surprised if an apology is issued to that reporter at some point from Bill O'Brien. But to act like there was some sort of just offense, like the guy came to him from a very sensitive place, reasonable question, and he just snapped. And then Trevor was almost collateral damage. What's up, Trevor? Yeah. It's so good. What do you want,
After
Trevor?
Being so hot,
and do what you want to do. We're not down. The sun is up, and we're fighting. That's my message to the fans. What's up, Trevor?
Do you want some too? What do you got?
Yeah.
He's like,
what's up, Trevor?
The guy from SpongeBob. How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man? It's putting your fists together. For what it's worth, Boston College, I can't tell you the last time they've had more than a 7-win. Okay, I'll tell you exactly. 2007 and 2006.
Oh, man, is Matt Ryan the quarterback then?
You got it right. They won the Champs Sports Bowl.
Oh, nice.
With Jeff Jaduskinski as the head coach, which sounds like a creative coach on Madden. I brought up Discord. Hey, Trevor, what's going on? My dumbest thing in sports is the fact that Keyshawn Butte decided to announce his injury, not to leak to Adam Schefter, not to let Patriots PR handle this. No. He went to the day ones, his Patreon subscribers, his Discord downers. Keyshawn Butte went into his Discord.
Well, hold on real quick. Can you kind of, because honestly, I know Discord, but I don't really know what it is. Like, why would Keyshawn Butte have a Discord?
Gotcha. A Discord is kind of like a, God, this is like, tell me the definition of it. Yeah, it is something that is.
Is it something people go to watch people stream games?
No, it's something where you can, it's kind of like a Zoom for audio. You can go in these rooms with your friends. You can call them. Everyone has a profile. You can hop in. What he has is a page where fans can come in and there's different rooms. You can go in a certain room and it might be announcements for Kayshon Boutte or Kayshon Boutte fan club meeting, and people would go in there and engage in discourse about Kayshon Boutte. I think it's dumb that an athlete would have one anyway, because the only thing I use it for is to call my friends when we're playing video games. But either way, he decided that it was important that his Discord family see his injury first. Everyone, he just tagged everyone in this. At everyone, just got my MRI results back. It's only a grade 1 sprain, so that's a good thing. Praying hands that are actually high-fiving hands. Shouldn't be down too long, but we are working to get back. It's a possibility I play in Sunday in Tampa, depending on how I'm feeling. But if not, I'm hopefully good for the Jets on Thursday Night Football. I'll keep y'all updated. Just know I'm working to get stronger and come back even better. I'm sure Mike Vrabel is thrilled that you are letting people know, hey, I might not play, but if I don't, I'll be back for Thursday. Shut up! Shut up! Can we just disguise this on the injury report? Can we have some ambiguity over your playing status? Why the hell would you give this away? Kayshon Boutte, I'm sure you will have a meeting with Mike Vrabel and this will all get cleared up and things will be hunky-dory.
God, what I would give to be a fly on the wall of somebody, explaining Discord to Mike Vrabel.
It's like, the only thing that's Discord around here is the Discord about what I'm about to say to you.
When did Vrabel become like Mater from Cars?
That wasn't Mater. Mater's Larry the Cable Guy. That's like, I couldn't even do a Larry.
A little higher pitch.
Couldn't even do a Larry if I wanted to.
Oh, man. That's a good submission to go straight to the chat. Hey, chat, just got my MRI results.
Hey, chat, everybody smash that like button for my MRI coming back. Only a grade 1 sprain.
Oh, man. It's a good thing the Patriots are overperforming because it has been a year off the field for Patriots receivers.
Oh, wow.
My goodness, from Stephon Diggs to this. But look, who are we to talk? They're sitting there at the top of the AFC.
Begging Mac Hollins to come back. Please do more fix-it videos on TikTok. We thought you were so bad and you're not. Please come back.
615-737-1045 for tickets to Bring Me the Horizon. Frankie in Cedar Hills up first. Hey, Frankie.
How's it going?
Good, man. What you got?
Well, I'd say the dumbest thing I've seen in sports was during the World Series. I can't remember which game, but it was a ball called strike, and it was just, these players, I understand they're better than me, but they're getting paid millions of dollars. They ought to be a little bit more aware and understand it. They seem to be getting picked off on a strike call, thinking it's a ball, and just getting outs like that in a pretty serious game, trying to win a championship for their team. It didn't look good. They all looked dumbfounded when it was happening. It happened twice, actually. So,
one involving Guerrero Jr., right? Am I incorrect in saying that?
Yeah, I believe one was Guerrero Jr. and the other one was Bo Bichette.
Yeah,
I know for sure Bo had one.
Yeah.
It just looked so dumbfounded when it happened. And
right, no, it's
players. I'm not saying anything like that.
No, it's a good submission, Frankie.
No, that's exactly what you're saying, Frankie. Thank you for the submission. We heard it loud and clear, buddy.
That's a great submission by Frankie. For that to happen on that stage, double play, just misunderstanding the situation. Yeah, that's just. Blue Jays fans had to be so gutted. As a very well-publicized non-baseball show, hat tip, World Series were electric.
I'm sure they'll be right back in it next year. It's not like these things are extremely fluid.
The Dodgers definitely will. We have not talked to Brett Kern, the Blue Jays fan. He'll be in the studio tomorrow. Forgot to get his feelings on that on Monday. Mike in Nashville's up next. Hey, Mike.
What up? Mine is Ja Morant yet again creating headlines for something that doesn't involve playing basketball, and the guy's like 27 years old and just continues to act like a child. Completely gave up on his team, and it's just really hard to root for the Grizzlies with him there. He's so unlikable, and his perception of himself is like so disconnected from reality. I'm tired of him, and I can't wait for the Grizzlies to trade him.
Thanks for the call, Mike. So, Ja Morant has been, I've actually completely missed this, has been suspended?
I also missed this.
By the Memphis Grizzlies?
When I looked up Ja Morant, it's everyone saying Ja Morant's trade value seems low, but there's one team to watch right now. Are the Sacramento Kings engaged in Ja Morant trade talks? Ja Morant's future with the Memphis Grizzlies, what's it look like? It's complicated. So whatever happened, it was not good, but I also missed this.
Okay, so he returned. He was suspended for 1 game. A team-imposed punishment due to his actions in Memphis's loss to the L.A. Lakers on Friday. I'm not sure what those actions were. We can look more at this in the break, but the ESPN headline is Ja Morant did little to address the friction that has boiled over between he and the Grizzlies in his return from a 1-game suspension. He had 18 and 10 in their loss to the Pistons in that first game back. And, it just kind of was rebuffing questions from reporters about it and kept deferring to the organization's statement. He said, quote, obviously they can't go and tell y'all something I ain't said. If I didn't have a good relationship with them, I wouldn't talk to them at all. So
he did drop some really cool shoes, though.
Okay. So a win-lose week for Ja Morant. By the way, we didn't even mention Memphis. Just in the CFP ranking. There they are, right? There's no group of 5 team was ranked in the top 25, but Memphis is the highest ranked group of 5 team. So there they are in the field. That might have caught you off guard as you're watching. There's not really that G5 Boise team that, is just right there front and center this year. I guess it's just going to be the winner of the American. But
I need Memphis to win so ECU can go play in Memphis and I can actually go see a game.
That'd be fun. In the American Championship?
Yes.
There's a path for ECU to the American Championship?
There is. They can get kind of screwed over by North Texas or some of these other teams, but there is a path.
Calvin in Nashville's next. Hey, Calvin.
Hey, I'm glad you didn't lead with what's up, Calvin.
What you got?
But my dumbest submission this week is Mike Borganzi on why he didn't trade and make more trades at the end was we couldn't find appropriate value after he traded 2 starting cornerbacks for basically a McValue meal. That's my dumbest thing in sports.
Thanks for the call, Calvin. I mean, look, the McCreary trade, it's a pick swap that gets you a higher-end 5th-round pick. You're not going to get – if you wanted a 2nd or a 3rd back from McCreary, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen for essentially a rental.
And I thought he'd covered it pretty well, talking about that being an 80-point swing between the 4th and 6th rounds if they didn't have a pick there. So having a roadblock in the middle of that where you would get to pick a player is super advantageous for a team that's got a bunch of holes.
Right. The Brownlee thing, hard to make sense of. And he did, and he answered questions about it in the presser, and we can run some of those back, too. Jeff in Lebanon will close us out. Hey, Jeff.
Hey. So we started the new tradition on the Tennessee pregame show where people are talking about their favorite things about Tennessee football. And there's a lady that she says, my 5 favorite words in football. It is football time in Tennessee. Rather than the iconic John Ward, it's football time in Tennessee.
You went real literal with it. That's great. Thanks for the call.
Yeah.
My favorite 5 words in football.
That's pretty funny.
It is foot space ball in Tennessee.
All right, let's give Jeff the tickets. Who's he going to go see?
Bring me the horizon.
Thanks, Jeff. We'll continue to react to Mike Borganzi's press conference. Robert will catch his breath. Hour 3 coming up next. Hour 3, welcome back. Lucas Panzik and Robert Walsh hanging out for the rest of the week. Buck gallivanting in Miami. We're fueled, of course, as always, by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. We've reached lunchtime. That means you should be knocking on the door of any one of Hattie B's 7 Middle Tennessee locations. If you download the Hattie B's app, you get a free dessert just for downloading the app and can start to stack rewards. And you might want to do that sooner than later because Hattie B's is doing Thanksgiving, and they can take care of it for you. Go look at some of their options, HattieB.com. Cheesy hot chicken dip is all I'm going to say. So we got off the air yesterday, almost out of breath, like, man, that was awesome. Trade deadline day, blockbuster moves, something we don't always get in the NFL. And then there was still another one to come. Another Jets star player, another all-pro caliber defender on the move as the New York Jets, after we got off and before that 3 p.m. deadline, sent star defensive lineman Quinnen Williams to the Dallas Cowboys in exchange for a 2026 second, a 2027 first, and defensive tackle Mozzie Smith. So, just like that, the Jets, on what was, Rhett Bryan told us before the show, Robert, the busiest trade deadline day in the NFL, the second busiest since 1990 trade deadline day in the NFL. The Jets end up with 5 first-rounders over the next 2 years. That's a lot of ammo. So you look at the Jets, who are tanking like no one's ever tanked before. They've also failed with star players and the makings of an elite defense in a way that not many teams have failed before. So that's a part of it. And then you've got Jerry Jones. That is a guy we laugh at all the time, but sometimes you have to tip the cap. And when Jerry came out and said that, insinuated that there were going to be some splash moves made by the Cowboys by the trade deadline, and then sent a 7th to Cincinnati in exchange for a linebacker named Logan Wilson that most people had never heard of, we kind of laughed. We're like, all right, Jerry, all right, what else are you going to do? And then he went and got Quinnen Williams. So, okay, Jerry did what he said he was going to do. If you ask Troy Aikman on the Monday Night Football broadcast, it doesn't matter. And this is a Cowboys team that is not a player away, no matter who that player is. But that player is a pretty good player in Quinnen Williams in the middle of that defense.
No, I definitely agree. And while it's probably easy to be like, that's a gross overpay, that's Jerry just being Jerry, I do think there's something to say about positional value in that, where Quinnen Williams is probably a top 5, he's a top 5 defensive tackle. And you don't get guys like that unless you trade for them or draft them in the top 10. They're highly sought after. The Jordan Davises of the world, what's the other cat from Georgia that liked to throw his car around? Carter.
Jalen Carter.
Jalen Carter. You only get those guys with high picks. So I understand the sentiment of, there's Jerry just being Jerry. But you also did get a high-value player and still have extra first-round picks from the Micah trade. So I think it's easy to poo-poo Jerry, but I also I'm seeing this as a half-glass-full kind of thing. I don't see this as a gross overpay. Now, while I do think the Sauce Gardner trade was a little overpay, there was a note that came out today that makes me think it is a slightly better trade in favor for the Colts. So the Colts weren't just buying a two-time first-team All-Pro cornerback when they were acquiring Sauce Gardner. They were also buying a discounted rookie contract extension that won't need to be touched for 3+ seasons. So over the next 3.5 years, Sauce Gardner is owed $71 million, which is $20 million APY. That's pretty good money, actually incredibly good money for a cornerback of his caliber. So while I still think it was a little bit of a overpay, it is slightly moving in the other direction for me with that information.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, put that next to L'Jarius Sneed.
Right.
When you talk about average annual value.
And then what you get on the return on that investment, like the play on the field, not just, okay, we're getting a good value on this guy. You're also getting incredible play for what you're paying.
615-737-1045. You can hang out on Zone TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch on the F&M Bank chat. And yeah, overpay, sure. And Sauce Gardner hasn't been the Sauce Gardner that he introduced himself as in the NFL since, the second year in the league.
Only one interception since 2022.
Sure. People also don't throw to him for good reason. But if you're the Colts, man, like the chips are in at this point. This is also a heavy indication that the chips are in on Daniel Jones, right? You don't have a first-round pick to go get a quarterback. Colts are going to re-sign Daniel Jones. They're not going to have much of another option. As Anthony Richardson, I suppose is in the last year of his rookie deal?
That's a good question. No.
He would. That's right. 2023 draft.
So, yes.
He will have at least another year and obviously a fifth-year option.
Well, they will never. The fact that you
even bring up the fifth-year option.
Shut up. They're not picking up a fifth-year option for that dude. They might as well try to do the Lamar Jackson experiment and play him in another position.
Like, they're not going to J.J. McCarthy this thing and ship off Daniel Jones for someone like the Seahawks to reap the benefits while they struggle with the...
Hey, we'll make this work. He will be traded, guy. Who will fetch a bigger secondarily traded quarterback value price? Would it be Trey Lance, who was traded for, I believe, a 6th-round pick to Dallas? Or will Anthony Richardson be just flat out released?
Yeah.
Who will get more for their investment? The 49ers and Trey Lance or the Colts and Anthony Richardson?
Richardson will be a more attractive quarterback than Trey Lance. You got to think, right?
Well,
had some good preseason performances
and traded
from Trey Lance
for what it's worth. But every time, and you saw that when he was with the 49ers too, he had some good preseason games. But then he got hurt, and Anthony Richardson, he didn't show anything, and then he got hurt. So, like, I would argue that Trey Lance right now is probably he's also played more games. It's crazy. I've never thought about this before, how eerily similar of prospects they were as far as potential versus what they've already shown. Like Trey Lance, North Dakota State, didn't have to play a lot of games, didn't play a lot of
limited sample size, yeah.
Right. So I've never thought of it like that.
Yeah, Richardson, obviously a much bigger program playing against NFL talent, but still 13 games at, 13 starts at Florida? It's such a tiny sample size. And those risks have paid off before. I mean, well, I don't know. I mean, who comes to mind? I suppose Mitch Trubisky is a guy that, had one season under his belt, and we saw how that went. But getting off track. That is going to be a fascinating discussion, though, from here on out every offseason. Okay, who's next up on the, reclamation quarterback candidate list for teams to take a swing on?
Mac Jones.
100%.
Jacoby Brissett.
Do you get to be Gino did it, but
how many times has he been reclaimed? It's like, what is there left to reclaim?
32. I mean,
what is it when there's people's job in science? It's like, we need to put nutrients back into the soil. We've taken everything. That's what they need to do with Jacoby Brissett. He has been stripped of everything. He's given everything he has to like 8 different organizations. How do we pour back into Jacoby Brissett?
That's the other thing that happened after we got off the air yesterday. Jonathan Gannon after the game on Monday night. No, Kyler's our starter. Jonathan Gannon yesterday. Jacoby Brissett is our starter. And I suppose the spin, whether it's accurate or not, is that Kyler Murray risks a setback. This is from Tom Pelissero. If he plays before his foot injury is fully healed, which can take 4 to 8 weeks. Pelissero says he's still not moving normally, and Arizona is sticking with Jacoby Brissett for now. So what do you make of all of this?
The new Call of Duty's coming out.
Oh, no. Is it actually?
I have a doctor's note. I, totally can't play for, the next month and a half.
You sound like Kyler Murray sounds like a 12-year-old skater.
Hey, dude, hang 10, bro. Get on Call of Duty. Let's get some kill streaks, man.
Hold on. Is that real? Is the new Call of Duty coming out?
I don't know. Battleground's kind of dominating right now. Or Battlefield. God, I sound so old.
Because wasn't that a thing for a while that he would get injured whenever a new Call of Duty came out?
Or his play would slump when the new... It's like double XP weekend, drinking that Code Red Mountain Dew. Got to get the games in, dude. Come on. I don't know. I haven't played a Call of Duty game in so long, but I would assume there is a video game that he would be willing to pour his time into. God, we could have seen Baseball Kyler. We could have seen Baseball Kyler and never watched it, but now we get to make fun of you for playing too many video games. Nobody ever look at what I do in my free time.
So that happened yesterday, but there's been so much discussion on and there's no question in my mind. And Titans fans wanted to see more moves naturally, but when they see the Jets getting what they got and giving up what they gave up, I do think that amplified and made louder the cries for how could you not be doing more? Best the Titans were doing yesterday was maybe getting a couple sixes.
This is like having a yard sale and being upset that you couldn't sell your old baby clothes. What do you mean no one wanted these? These are perfectly pre-owned baby clothes. No one wants my hairbrush. I only brushed my hair with it 6 times. You can't be mad that you didn't make any money at your yard sale when all you put out was the crap that even you didn't want.
And by the way, is there a bigger sign of hopelessness for the New York Jets to go on a draft run and bring in the likes of, on one side of the ball alone, Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner, and on offense with Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and all of these players they have brought in and do nothing with them to the point that you are just shipping all of them off.
I think the only bad thing about it would be staying. If you were one of the guys who was like, you know, the meme with the cat.
Did you see Breece Hall on Twitter yesterday?
He made it painfully obvious. I don't know. We've talked about Kurt Benkert a lot on this show. Benkert put a thing out like, I don't think Breece is going to get traded. And then 6 minutes later, quote tweets it with something that's like, Breece Hall would like to get out. Okay, obviously you're buddies with him because you both play Madden. So, like, why not just say, hey, Breece Hall wants to get out? Did you see the supposed trade offer that the Kansas City Chiefs sent to the Jets?
For
Breece Hall.
No.
A 4th-round pick, and the Jets were adamant that they needed a 3rd. Chiefs fans upset because famously the Chiefs traded a 3rd-round pick for, name just escaped me, Giants former wide receiver, Kadarius Toney.
Oh, yeah.
Famously traded a 3rd round for Kadarius Toney, but Breece Hall, who's a proven asset, far too high of a price to pay. I want to thank you, Jets. Thank you for that's the only thing you can look at the Kansas City Chiefs and say that is their weakness. They have to physically make a run game. If you add Breece Hall, you give them another dynamic weapon. Thank you. Thank you for not being a Cleveland Browns who wants to help a division rival, help someone in their conference. We appreciate you, Jets, and we see you.
Breece Hall on pace for a 1,000-yard season. Nice option out of the backfield.
His first one in his career, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. These prices are all over the place, just all out of whack. Because what kind of starting point would that give the Titans, let's say, if a Jeffrey Simmons trade becomes in the cards in the offseason? If Quinnen Williams is going for what he went for, a 1st and a 2nd and another defensive tackle. But the Titans, again, at every turn, not keen on trading Jeffrey Simmons, and we'll hear Mike Borganzi explain why coming up next. So we are getting confirmation from our crack research team littered across Middle Tennessee that the new Call of Duty does come out next week. Black Ops 7, I guess they're up to a 7.
God, just come up with a new name at this point.
Yeah. Not great. Not great for Kyle Murray from a PR standpoint. He might have to get out in front of that and those allegations as he continues his slow return from a foot injury, and that's why Jacoby Brissett is the starter, not because the offense has looked better under Jacoby Brissett, and the Cardinals had kind of a signature win on the season Monday night against the Cowboys on the road.
We did get a report from Jordan Schultz that said in 2 to 3 weeks, Kyler would be sending out some UAVs to send to the team facility to feel what the temperature's like and if he would be willing to rejoin the team at that point. So look forward to him.
Cardinals got a couple divisional games coming up. They go to Seattle this weekend as the Seahawks potentially break in Rashid Shaheed, which is a move, Robert, that's going to go so under the radar from a crazy trade deadline day, but can immediately pay dividends for the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, we can just, let's knock out a quick Wet Powder Wednesday before we hear from Mike Borganzi. Yours has to do with the Cardinals, right? I'm going to say my Wet Powder is the Seattle Seahawks are somebody we need to be talking about to be in the NFC Championship game in the playoffs.
I don't disagree with you. And the reason I think that this move could pay dividends is because after moving off of DK Metcalf, they thought that they could fill that void with Cooper Kupp. You know, he understands the division. He would be fired up to come in and play his former team. He has not looked incredibly spectacular this year. 24 catches, 293 yards, 1 touchdown. That's serviceable, but that's not what you'd really like from him. Adding Shaheed can add an extra element to this offense. The deep threat portion that they really didn't have outside of JSN. They've got a couple rookies who have been able to contribute, but adding a bona fide deep threat to this offense that has already had, I would say probably, it's really tough to say they have the best offense in their division because Matthew Stafford and the Rams are just humming along. But maybe the least offensive offense, I would say that. A lot of fun to watch.
What was your Wet Powder Wednesday?
My Wet Powder Wednesday is, and this is the wettest of powder. Like there's not even a semblance of powder anymore. It's just paste. But I think Walter Nolan on the Cardinals could end up winning Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Wow.
He looked so good in his debut against Dallas. I've got to give you the stat off the top of my head because I don't have it in front of me, so forgive me if it's wrong. But the first rookie since T.J. Watt in his debut game to have 2+ tackles for a loss, a sack, and a pass defended. So super encouraging if you're a Cardinals fan. But again, I feel like they have these drafts every year where the Cardinals add some vicious defensive lineman, and they just can never seem to keep up with a semblance of pressure. But add him to Calais Campbell, that defensive line looks pretty good, at least for this year. Who knows if Calais Campbell's going to retire? I think he could win Defensive Rookie of the Year if Abdul Carter gets hurt.
Plus 5,000 on FanDuel.
No way! Oh, wow. I thought those odds would be a little better, but that's not bad.
I mean, tied with Mike Green of the Baltimore Ravens.
Who has not really reached the heights that people expected him to do. Got his first sack 2 weeks ago against the Bears.
Abdul Carter, obviously the overwhelming favorite. Jahad Campbell at plus 380. Nick Wari, the former South Carolina safety, at plus 400.
I haven't watched a ton of Campbell to know how well he has translated the field, but they had, besides Zach Bond, that was one of the issues. Every year the Eagles have had one glaring issue. Before it was the third receiver. Then one year it was a linebacker. This year it's a little bit in the secondary. He has filled in nicely, but I don't know how well. I haven't watched the Eagles intently.
Jackson Dart in the driver's seat to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. We are on 1045 The Zone TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Emmett says Seattle looks awesome. Best NFC team in the West, arguably. Strong statement.
I wouldn't disagree, but it's just really tough to the Seahawks and Rams haven't played yet, have they?
Oh, I can't remember off the top of my head.
They have not. They will play November 16th.
Could very well decide that division, those two games. All right, Mike Borganzi. So we see the Quinnen Williams trade, absolute blockbuster. Titans fans, I think, had a little bit of trade deadline FOMO. They wanted to be a part of something like that. They wanted to see their team get something huge in return to take another step closer to that 30 draft picks over 3 years goal, of which they are at 24 currently. But the Titans were steadfast. They were never going to trade Jeffrey Simmons. Mike Borganzi met with the media earlier today, held a press conference. We carried it in hour 1 of the show. Go back and listen to the podcast, The Buck Rising Show, this week with no Buck Rising, as we like it. And rate, review, subscribe while you're there. But this was Borganzi and the exchange with Titans reporters on Jeffrey Simmons and the lack of a move.
Did you talk to Dallas about Jeff, considering what Dallas gave up for Williams?
I'm not going to get into who we talked. We talked to 31 other teams for the past 3 weeks. So I will not get into any particulars of any moves that we did not make. But I will say with Jeff, just because you asked about Jeff, and I'm not going to talk about any other players here, Jeff is invaluable to us right now, to where we want to go.
When you say building for the future, though, as you did with Draymond, does that not enter into the picture with Jeff as well as probably your most valuable asset, that could be traded?
Well, you have to weigh those options, and you say it's a business, but when you weigh those options, you look at it and you say, what do we have here? And he's a pillar here in this organization for what you want, and he's one of the best players in the league in his position. And the way he works every day at practice, I don't know if I've seen a defensive lineman superstar like him, just empty the tank every day at practice. It's impressive. And when your best player does that and younger guys look to him, that's what you want. That's what I'm talking about being a standard.
So that's Titans GM Mike Borganzi on why the Titans were not willing to move Jeffrey Simmons. So obviously you can look at it in a multitude of ways, right? It can be, on one hand, the Titans feel like they're far away. They feel like they're what? What kind of timeline would we put it at? 2 seasons before being meaningfully competitive, before getting back even close to that conversation. Now, we do that, and, we've seen teams fall well behind of those timelines that we set. We've seen teams jump far ahead in those timelines. And you could say he is the one thing that could get you the kind of return that Titans fans seemed to so badly crave yesterday, yet didn't want Jeffrey Simmons to be the one that was moved. And then on the other hand, you can look at all the things Mike Borganzi just laid out as they do try to build this thing forward. And whether you want to take his reasoning on why they traded Jarvis Brownley as fair, reasonable or not, that's the move they made because they, for whatever reason, felt like Jarvis Brownley Jr. was not, that his habits were not conducive to the culture that they're trying to build here. We're not in there. We never heard anything bad about Jarvis Brownley, and he's only seeming to have a positive effect on the Jets, but that's what Mike Borganzi tells us. We do know the positive impact that Jeffrey Simmons has on that building as they try to build this thing out. So I understand that reasoning. I get that from Mike Borganzi. Now, the Titans were very consistent in that they were never going to move Jeff. I don't even think if there was a shred of hope from Titans fans that they would move their most sellable asset for something huge in return, then it was something that was kind of made up, right? It was never something that was out there in the ether. They were consistent with that, unlike the Devondre Sweat thing, where reporting is bubbling up from Albert Breer or whoever that, he's not dependable. They hope a new staff can reach him. And then the second the trade deadline shuts down, Jordan Schultz is out there saying, no, they consider Devondre Sweat a cornerstone piece of the defense.
He's part of the family.
There you go.
We never trade away family.
In terms of what kind of moves the Titans did not make yesterday, Dan Graziano and Jeremy Fowler got together with kind of a post-NFL trade deadline piece hitting on a bunch of different things. And they do have something on the Titans here where it reads, the Titans had interest from teams on both tight end Chika Okonkwo and wide receiver Calvin Ridley, but they needed something significant to part with offensive playmakers for their rookie quarterback, Cam Ward. They weren't eager to trade either one for that reason. Tennessee was a bit stuck because while it badly needed more draft capital for the future, it did not want to engage in late day 3 pick swaps of little value. Plus, its biggest asset, defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons, was off limits. So the Titans squeezed value where they could, getting a pair of 5th-round picks from the Roger McCreary and Draymond Jones trades, while sending a conditional late 6th-rounder to L.A. with McCreary. And we understand that the Draymond Jones trade could turn into a 4th from Baltimore.
And that makes sense from a negotiating standpoint. Like, you don't want to come in and start your negotiation at, okay, what do you want to give for him? We'll take anything. So you have to start with the value high, at least from the Chig standpoint. In my opinion, Chig is probably worth a 7th-round pick. He's an expiring contract for a tight end that's really never done much in the form of being consistent. But when you come into those negotiations, I imagine you will start with, okay, we would take a 5-6 swap for Chig, or we would take a 6-7 swap for Chig. But if they're not willing to do that and you walk away from the deal, it's really hard to call people back and be like, hey, actually, we'll take a 7th, because that's a notable trait, right? Then it's like, okay, we can just double back to this dude around the deadline, and they'll end up squeezing the prices. I think this sets a good precedent for negotiations going forward. Like, if you're going to buckle on deals and buckle on value, then you will be known for that. People will be like, oh, we can always go pick the apple tree in Tennessee because they know they're up against it. They know the guys. So I respect him setting a precedent. But, again, you can still be upset about wishing you could have gotten some value for an expiring contract player like Chig or like a Sebastian Joseph Day.
Yeah, and again, things can change in the offseason, right? And the Titans can get closer to that goal of the amount of draft picks, the amount of capital that they want over the next 3 years by trading assets in the offseason if they want to do that. Titans have a ton of cap space, ton of wiggle room over the next couple of years. On the F&M Bank chat, where you can hang out, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. You can also call in 615-737-1045. I'm always so scared to read these names.
Now that YouTube changed and they show people's ats rather than their names, It is very scary.
Big Buey. We're good? I didn't just inadvertently say something that needs to be dumped?
I don't think so.
Big Buey. Big Jeff is having the same career path as Jarrell Casey. I feel sorry for him.
Oh, I thought you were going to read hard work keeps you on a bleep team. I was like, maybe don't read that one.
No. Dixie, who has gotten me before on the F&M Bank chat, I won't read the last name. Dixie says, actually the complete opposite. Casey came to a terrible team and watched it rise. Jeff came to a winning team and watched it fall. And that is true. Jarrell Casey did not see the Titans have any sort of meaningful success until the very tail end of his run with the Titans, when Mike Vrabel took over in 2018, and then, of course, that 2019 run, the last 2 years of the Jarrell Casey era in Tennessee. But I will say this about Jarrell Casey. Yes, he was a bright light on a lot of bad football teams here. He was also pretty essential to the Titans and what they were building at the early onset of the Vrabel era. So I understand the thinking here from Mike Borganzi and the Tennessee Titans that they want Jeffrey Simmons to be that. Even if his level of play, Robert, is not what we were seeing before he went down with that hamstring, just what he brings as a tone setter in that building, that can still be there 2-3 years from now when Jeff is 30, 31 years old, even if the elite level he's playing at drops off. And you may not get to match those things up. Like, it might be true that the Titans will never get elite level Jeffrey Simmons on a meaningfully competitive football team again. That's very possible. It's almost likely at this point, unless Jeff has some sort of career trajectory in terms of his durability that is rare among defensive tackles. And that can be on the table too. But Jarrell Casey in 2019 was not the height of his career, right? That wasn't the peak Jarrell Casey, but he was so pivotal to what they wanted to do on defense and building out what Mike Vrabel wanted from a cultural standpoint as he hit 30 years old. So I get that logic for Jeffrey Simmons to be that guy for the Titans, even if it takes 2 years and Jeffrey Simmons, who's currently 28 years old, is sitting here at 30 doing his thing while the Titans continue to build around him on defense and, of course, around Cam Ward on offense. So I get that logic. To me, that's sound, even if you could have gotten a giant haul for Jeffrey Simmons. And you can also argue that 30-year-old Jeffrey Simmons could very well be better. 31-year-old Jeffrey Simmons could very well be better than X defensive tackle that you take out of X school in the first or second round or whatever it might be. So I've gone back and forth on that individually, I'll admit. Like Friday, when I was in here with Ramon, I was almost bringing myself over to the side of, if you're going to do this, then do it in terms of the rebuild. But the Jarrell Casey example kind of brings me back over with the value that Casey brought. And I get the Titans have a lot more work to do at this point than they did, even when Casey was at the age that Jeff is now. But conceptually, I understand that. The thing that I think a lot of Titans fans are just not going to be able to understand is the Jarvis Brownley trade. End of the day. And we're not going to be able to understand it because we're not there. And nothing has come out about Jarvis Brownley's habits that Mike Borganzi alluded to. It's just tough for fans to hear all of those things about habits that weren't conducive to the culture they're trying to build, but we love Jarvis and wish him nothing but the best. It's hard to come to terms with, and it's probably something that's never going to make sense if those things don't actually come out. And that's just kind of where things are. But otherwise, I think Titans fans wanted more out of yesterday, and we're never really going to get what they truly wanted out of yesterday, unless you were on board with trading Jeff. Like, if you wanted them to go full-blown 100% fire sale and trade Jeffrey Simmons, then okay, then you're disappointed because they didn't do that. They were never going to do that. But if you're on the side of no, you can't trade Jeff by any means. But how could they not do more? How could they not get? It's like, you don't get both.
Before we move on to polls, I think there's one more thing Mike Borganzi said in the presser that we didn't get to that I think is super important.
Please.
For Titans fans to hear, and really anyone in the vicinity of our voices.
Let's hope the Ravens go to the playoffs.
Please, God. Please.
Isn't that crazy?
Now that I have this cut for the rest of my life,
What
of
a
a Titans general manager saying he hopes the Ravens go to the playoffs.
Let's hope the Ravens go to the playoffs.
I agree with you, Mike. I agree with you.
Listen, I mean, we brought this up yesterday, and the FNM chat rebuked it in the name of Jesus, to quote Caleb Farley.
They're like, you can have those 10 picks.
Yeah, they said, no, we don't want the Ravens. Yes, you want the Ravens to make the playoffs. A fourth-round pick's better than a fifth-round pick. The Ravens making the playoffs has no effect on the Titans whatsoever, except for a positive one.
And also, if I was a Titans fan that wanted to ha-ha, like the Simpsons laugh from, if you wanted to laugh at them, you want the Ravens to make the playoffs and get stomped in the wild card by the Bills or the Chiefs. So you can laugh and go, ha-ha, you guys made the playoffs and didn't do anything. You didn't even get a win, and now your pick's worse. So, you do want them to go to the playoffs, but you want them to fall on their face after they get to the playoffs.
It's not a fun place to be, to have to root for one of the teams you hate the most to make the postseason because it'll make one of your picks better because you have to sell off all your parts and pieces. But it's the situation that the Titans have kind of created over the last few years and that they are now trying to dig out of. We'll wrap up the show. Last call for phone calls, 615-737-1045, and we'll do some polls on the way out on 1045 The Zone. We've talked about this, but you know who I continue to feel for? Titans defensive coordinator Denard Wilson.
What a good soldier, dude.
Tall task for Denard Wilson. And Mike Borganzi acknowledged that as well in his press conference earlier today. Wrapping things up. Last call for phone calls. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Catch the whole show on the podcast. You can always go back and watch the YouTube live stream as well. That gets banked on 1045 The Zone's YouTube page where you can go and subscribe. What are we at? The road to 20? 20K?
We're at 18.1.
Oh.
Steadily growing.
Step by step.
I am always impressed with the fandom and the people that listen to us. Eternally grateful. You guys, if we didn't have listeners, we didn't have people subscribing, we would be talking into the ether to nobody. And this show would probably be a lot less funny.
At Lucas Panzica, at Robbie_Walsh on Twitter as he actively campaigns to take the Burt handle.
I can't even DM the guy anymore. You get one DM.
He ghosted you?
I tried to look him up. I tried to look his email up that's connected to the Twitter. I can't.
So you did send him a message?
Yes.
And he ghosted you.
He's a loser. Go look at this guy. At BERT. Tweet at him.
Report him.
He hadn't tweeted in like 6 months. I need that handle. Who else would want? I'd be fighting Burt Kreischer for the at Burt.
Yeah, he's going to win that.
No, he's not. Hopefully, Burt, he does also not get a bidding war. I would hope that he would just relegate himself. Just give me the handle. They already know you, dog.
Yeah.
They already know you.
Jonathan Jones of CBS reported earlier today, about an hour ago. No, yesterday this was. Actually, right after the Sauce Gardner trade to Indy went down. He said the Jets were not actively shopping Sauce Gardner. He has one interception since 2022, which Robert said earlier, and the return was too good to pass up for the Jets. The interception thing, I'm not that interested in, right? Like, nobody's throwing to Sauce Gardner.
And if you go look at his completion percentage allowed, it's astronomically low.
Elite.
Astronomically low.
Yeah. You know how Buck gets hung up on the sacks? We look too much into sacks.
Yes.
Which we do, I get it, but it's also what gets you paid, right? Draymond Jones, if he gets 2 sacks, gets the Titans a 4th-round pick, and the Ravens make the playoffs.
Doesn't say anything about pressure.
Yeah, like that. It matters, and I guess he could make I'm arguing against myself here because interception's very much kind of on that same thread. But when it comes to cornerbacks, like the interception number is not one that I'm particularly obsessed with, especially one of the best shutdown corners in the NFL. Not going to get thrown to a whole lot. So the Colts have announced Sauce Gardner. He will wear number 1. And here we go, Indianapolis. Unexpectedly in this Super Bowl window, pedal to the metal, Daniel Jones. The Colts' upcoming schedule, as they go all in the foreseeable future, they host the Falcons, and they go to Kansas City. That's on Thanksgiving weekend. On Sunday, so it's not a Thanksgiving Day game, but that will be on Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend. Beyond that, they still play the Texans twice and the Jags once. They go to Seattle, host the Niners. No, they play the Jags twice, excuse me. So there you go. Jags twice, Texans twice, at Seahawks, at Chiefs, Falcons home, Niners home.
I just saw another report.
Go on.
God, dude, this is so goofy. I can't even imagine this. All right, so Mary Kay Cabot, she's like the big insider for the Cleveland Browns, and she was on the Orange Brown Talk. We talked about terrible podcast names. Come on. Or, hey, what's your favorite podcast? The Orange Brown Talk.
Is that worse than Meow Mix?
Yes, dude, isn't he? On the Dark Green podcast. Let's just name them after our team's colors. Quote from Mary Kay Cabot. From people I've talked to, he feels like he can come in and be successful with this football team. I want you to guess.
I saw it. I'm sorry.
Deshaun Watson thinks that, dude, where have you been? They're paying this guy an astronomical amount of money, and not only paying him, they have continued to, similar to the Saints, push the buck down the line. I want you to give me a guess. What Deshaun Watson's cap space number is for next year? What's his cap hit?
Was it like in the 50s or something?
Oh, bigger.
Big 70s.
Bigger.
80s.
It is $80 million. And then not only after that, 3 years after he's no longer a Cleveland Brown. The first year, a void tax of $25 million. The next year, a void tax of $16 million. And the following year, a void tax of $8 million. It would be the best case scenario if he miraculously was good at football again. That way the Browns could sign him to a moderate contract, get some of these void hits out of the way, and be like, dude, we've paid you so much money to do nothing for us. Do us half a solid. And cut us a good deal. If there was one reclamation quarterback that would surprise me at this point, we've seen the Sam Darnolds, the Daniel Jones, everyone else we thought, Baker. If Deshaun ends up being a reclamation project and ends up being good again, God, what would I eat? Tell me what I would have to eat. My shoe, a crock, a horseshoe.
No, sweet potato, because you've told us all about eating the sweet potato in the middle of the night. I want to see it.
I would eat an entire white towel from a massage parlor if Deshaun Watson is
used. It can't be clean.
Yeah, after I get a massage, I would have to eat that towel.
Curtis on the FNM Bank chat says, it's crazy. Daniel Jones, excuse me, I'm reading the wrong thing. He says, Daniel Jones Super Bowl window is a wild thing to say. I mean, I love that. I love playing that game of if we had a time machine. If I had a time machine, I would not go back in time to witness Julius Caesar's empire. I would not watch the Boston Tea Party in person. I would go back to July and tell people the Colts are putting their chips in to this Daniel Jones Super Bowl window just to get a reaction. That's it. That's all I would do.
Nah, I'd go back to, I would go back to 2005 with on my hand written every Super Bowl, World Series, and NBA championship winner, and I would just cash in. I would be the richest man ever. I would come back, and this would be 104.5 The Burt. You'd be like, what does that mean? No one knows. This very rich dude just bought it and made it that.
Let's do some polls.
The polls brought to you by Two Rivers Ford, the most trusted Ford dealer in the South. What was the dumbest thing in sports this week? I closed out your Twitter, which is goofy, but what was your submission for the dumbest thing in sports again? I'm definitely not stalling.
Bill O'Brien chastising a reporter for daring to ask a question with a bit of a somber tone when his team is 1-8.
What's up, Trevor?
What's up, Trevor?
Some of the people. The thought of firing Heupel from Maurice, and the Brian saying the Titans not doing anything yesterday. Sorry, Brian, I don't feel bad for you. We talked about it all show. What do you think of the Titans trade deadline day? 32% were good with it, 49% wishes they could have done more, and 18% hated it. I understand the 32 and 49%, but if you hated it, I think you had a gross misunderstanding of what that trade deadline day the potential to be like for the Titans.
I agree. I think your expectations were probably unreasonable if you're coming away from trade deadline day livid that the Titans didn't make more moves and not get one extra sixth-round draft pick.
Who should have been ranked number one in the CFP ranking? 60% of the audience disagree with you and I, Lucas, and 39% say Indiana should have been the number one team in the nation.
End of the day, it doesn't really matter. Like we said, they're both in. They're going to be in the Big Ten championship. They're going to go head-to-head to probably determine who the number one overall seed is in the CFP, but I think it should be Indiana.
I agree. Happier fan base after the trade deadline. The Colts or the Cowboys, 72% going with the Colts. I would be inclined to agree because they are actually winning and doing something to put themselves in a position to win some more.
No doubt.
I agree it would have to be the Colts.
Yes, and it's just kind of this sudden, like, oh, we're good. Oh, we're this good, right? Like, that's always more of a fun wave to ride as opposed to whatever experience the Cowboys deal with on a yearly basis. Are those the polls?
Those are the polls.
And that's the show, fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. As always, we'll be back at it tomorrow. Ron Slay, SEC Mike, Nate Washington, Nashville SC Talk. Cover 2 coming up next.
I love living in Middle Tennessee. We've got great restaurants, entertainment, sports, and one of the nation's top Ford dealers right here in our backyard. Two Rivers Ford. Remember that name. Two Rivers has been a staple in our community since 1983. They're locally owned. They have a non-commissioned sales team, and they sell below MSRP. They've been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.